87%. Chapter 261. Killing King. The underworld has 3 swords. Second more. It wasn't just Da Chen Renwang who thought of the horrible scene 10 years ago. All the courtiers of the Great Chen dynasty also thought of that horrible scene. One counts as one. All of them looked terrified, and their scalps were so numb that they seemed about to split open. When no one came to Dajin, they felt in their hearts that although Dajin was strong, he could not compete with all parties at that time. Not to mention, the forces behind the sun-chasing sect, and the shocking powerhouse are coming soon. But at this time, the real face of Dajin came. They were all terrified. The momentum transmitted from the sky is so terrifying, so vast. Among them, there are also kings, and there are also true monarchs. But facing this terrifying aura, he felt like an ant on the ground looking up at the real dragon. 10 years ago they dared to roar and roar. But 10 years passed, June 27th, and they already understood what a terrifying force it was. Far from being able to compete with them, but knowingly invincible. There are still loyal and strong men who gritted their teeth and rushed into the air. They faced Li Daoyan and the others as if they were dead, and shouted. The king's capital is important, you can't control the sky. They are planning to die to maintain the final dignity of the Great Chen dynasty. After today, you, the Great Chen dynasty, have only 2 choices. Cooperate and merge into my Dajin, or I will kill you all. Li Daoyan stood in the void, her face was calm and flat, and her 3,000 blue hairs were flying slightly. His eyes swept across the 7 or 8 kings and true monarchs rushing up, and then his eyes fell on the palace. Her eyes don't give people a sense of sharpness. But let anyone who looks at her. Everyone's heart beat wildly, as if they were facing a god of death from the underworld. His eyes seemed to pass through layers of palaces. He directly saw the Dachan Renwang whose body was trembling slightly and his face was pale. Her voice was also not loud, but it also spread throughout the entire royal city. In an instant, more than 70% of the people in Dachan showed humiliation and anger. But the pressure of terror is mighty. Make them short of breath and unable to speak at all. Presumptuous. I, Chen, have been in the country for more than 6,000 years and cannot be insulted. An old general roared furiously. His beard and hair were all stretched out, and his eyes seemed to burst into flames. He is wearing a blue armor with many scars on it. Obviously this armor has gone through many battles. Holding a big blue knife in his hand, he stepped towards the sky, with a ferocious face, and slashed at Li Daoyan. Old General Wu, a man named Da Chen exclaimed in his heart, with a look of anticipation on his face. Old General Wu. They were the generals of the Chen dynasty 30 years ago, and once led an army to capture more than 60 cities of the Shenying dynasty. After hundreds of battles, big and small, there has never been a defeat. He must be the first in every battle, and his hands are stained with the blood of more than 10 true monarchs and kings of the Condor dynasty. Although he has retired from the court, he is enjoying his life. But it still has a very high prestige in the Great Chen dynasty. I saw the old general come out. They were all excited, feeling that with the strength of the old general, they would definitely be able to defeat the enemy. Old people don't use their muscles and bones as energy. Your lifespan is almost at the end of its life, what else is there to do? Li Ziran said. His body is upright, as calm and heavy as a mountain, with black hair flying all over his head, and Lei Yu is majestic. Standing in the air, it has a peerless demeanor, like a young great emperor flying across the sky, with a shocking aura. Boom. He takes a step forward. Punch out casually. Suddenly, the entire void seemed to freeze suddenly. The old General Wu was also frozen in the air, with a look of horror on his face. Before he could react, the fist roared like a real dragon, and directly hit him, sending him flying, smashing him to the ground covered in blood. If it wasn't for Li Ziran, keep it. This punch can turn this old General Wu into a bloody mist, leaving no bones left. Looking at Li Ziran whose expression remained unchanged. He looked at the dying old general who hit the ground again. A courtier of the Great Chen dynasty was cold all over, with a desperate expression on his face. Protect me, Da Chen. The 7 or 8 generals who rushed up before roared. Swords, guns, swords and halberds radiated light and blasted towards Li Ziran. Every attack can destroy a mountain and level a small city. But in front of Li Ziran. But they are all like chickens and dogs. He just punched casually. All of a sudden, the sword ray, the shadow of the gun, and the shadow of the axe all burst into pieces. Bang bang bang. One after another silhouettes flew out, and they were torn apart in the air, blood spilled into the sky. The entire Great Chen dynasty. Li Ziran also admired the former General Wu. So he kept it. But the rest of the people. If he was loyal to Da Chen, he would naturally not hold back, and he would beat them all to death. It seems that Da Chen King is unwilling to compromise. Li Deyan said softly. She holds out her right hand. A bloody knife appeared in her hand. Boom. On the bloody knife, the light of the Emperor's knife suddenly burst out. The light of the knife is like a picture scroll. It was a terrifying picture scroll of all souls perishing and the underworld respected. The astonishing aura of death is mighty. The whole sky. They all seem to be filled with death energy, and even more terrifying ghosts and gods are screaming, roaring, and miserable. The underworld Dao San Dao. The first cut. The underworld is now. Bang. The light of the knife fell in the Dachan Palace. Centered on Dachan Renwang. The land with a radius of hundreds of feet was completely transformed into the underworld in an instant. Everything was wiped out without a trace left. It was directly cut into a deep pit, filled with death, which made people feel terrified. The entire Great Chen King was silent. The scene 10 years ago reappeared today. A knife fell. The human king was beheaded by the Dajin dynasty again. All the courtiers of the Great Chen dynasty showed sorrow and despair in their hearts. Too strong. Obviously, the formation of the capital and the palace has been opened. But under the opponent's knife. This layer of formation is like paper paste. 0.7 has no effect at all. 10 years ago, my father beheaded you, Great Chen Renwang. Today, I will come to this place again and kill another king of yours, Da Chen. Do you think it will be the same as 10 years ago, and this is over? I will sit in the palace, and any forces that do not want to submit to me, I will kill them one by one, just like. Li Daoyan's face remained calm, her eyes rolled, and she looked at a mansion. It was the residence of the right minister of the Great Chen dynasty. According to Jin Yiwei's information, the right minister was an important minister of the 3 generations of the Chen dynasty, so loyal and impossible to surrender. So, boom, Death's blade glows again. It landed directly on the right prime minister's mansion. The whole mansion was instantly flooded with sword light like the underworld, everything, no matter people or things. Shatter it all. 88%. Chapter 262 Purple Chi floats the sky, young great emperor. Third change. The entire Great Chen King capital was filled with fear. Whether it's the courtiers who were originally high above, or ordinary people who were as small as dust. At this moment, he seemed so helpless, hiding in a corner and shivering. They looked up in fear, Li Daoyan and the others who looked like gods. The palace was slaughtered with a single knife. The right prime minister's mansion was smashed to pieces. They are Big Chen. In front of the opponent, there is no resistance at all. The scene from 10 years ago has reappeared again. No, scarier than 10 years ago. After all, 10 years ago, the other party just beheaded the former king and left. But this time, the other side really wants to be permanent. Think here, everyone's complexion became a little paler, and they liked it in their hearts. They are Big Chen. Is this about to destroy the country? I am immortal, my blood is still there. A group of young people rushed out, raising their heads and roaring. I am immortal. Many 21 young people who are still passionate rushed out. Among them are the children of princes and nobles, as well as the children of common people. One by one, they raised their heads and roared unyieldingly. You can refer to the Lengyu dynasty that was incorporated into my Dajin. Look at the life of their royal family, officials, and people today. I have the Wu Jing, Dao Jing, and Wen Dian to pass on to the world, and everyone can become a true monarch and a king. What I want to achieve is to achieve perfection in the world, where everyone is like a dragon. Li Daoyan looked calm, looking at those unyielding young people. She didn't move. The Cold Moon dynasty back then. There are also many unyielding young people. But now, all of them have been completely integrated into Dajin and are making contributions to Dajin. I won't kill you. You can't decide the survival and future of the Great Chen dynasty. The clan of the Great Chen dynasty, and the rational courtiers of the Great Chen dynasty, come and have a talk. Her eyes swept across the mansions. He also looked at the deepest places of the Great Chen dynasty. The background of the Great Chen dynasty is much stronger than that of the Lengyu dynasty. The royal family has 2 4th-stage true monarchs. And in the royal capital, within a certain family, there is also a 4th-stage true monarch hidden. Call. She stepped out and entered the palace. Li Zihan quickly followed. As for Li Ziran and Li Ziye, There is no stay. Directly across the sky, heading towards the Condor dynasty. Not long. They have already arrived at the capital of the Eagle dynasty. At this very moment, naturally, the Condor dynasty has not received any information from the Great Chen dynasty. Although they have special means of conveying information. But it is obviously impossible to be as fast as Li Ziran and Li Ziye. Li Ziran, Zishan king of the Dajin dynasty, is here to pay a visit to everyone from the Shenying dynasty. Boom! The monstrous purple air burst out suddenly, like a long river, mighty and mighty, sweeping hundreds of miles. The whole sky. At this moment, it turned into purple. Purple chi from the east, covering the world. A kind of priceless, terrifying aura of function suppressed towards the capital of Shenying king. Just for a moment, there are countless people of the Shenying dynasty with pale faces, like a huge mountain on their backs, unable to move. Even the officials of the Condor dynasty. Among them is the true monarch, and there is the king. But at this moment, he was also suppressed by this momentum, his face flushed red, and his eyes were horrified. Li Ziran's momentum is completely different from that of Li Daoyan. If it is said that Li Daoyan's aura is not sharp when she is not showing her sharpness, then Li Ziran's momentum, just like the morning sun rising into the sky, swallowing thousands of miles like a tiger. With black hair flying up and eyes shining, he really looks like a legendary young great emperor standing in the sky suppression GMI. Great Zhen dynasty. That arrives so fast. The king of the Condor dynasty had a gloomy and ugly face. How long has it been since Dajin issued the order to attack them? Dajin already has a strong one. And he thought so. Dajin will be the same as attacking Dali dynasty and Jingxiu dynasty. Evade with the army step by step. But now it seems that it is not at all. The other party actually planned to take Zhenyu directly to them with a peerless powerhouse. Looking at Li Ziran, who is like a god and a demon, with a mighty purple aura above him. His heart was filled with fear. 10 years ago. His father was beheaded in the palace. And now see the figure above. He also recalled the terrifying scene 10 years ago. Take a deep breath. After all, he is much more capable than Da Chen Xinren Ren Wang. He walked out of the study directly, raised his head and said, "Why doesn't King Zishan come down and talk to me? He knows. This catastrophe cannot be escaped no matter what. 10 years ago, this Zishan king was only the invincible young generation in the 9 true spiritual realm. 10 years. It has reached true invincibility. Their Condor dynasty is definitely not an opponent. The present plan, it can only delay the other party, waiting for the strong man behind the sun chaser to come. Just one question, you Condor dynasty. Are you willing to merge into my Dajin?" Li Ziran stepped into the void, looked at the Condor king, and said. He has a calm complexion, thick black hair, and the purple air behind his back is like a river, sweeping in all directions. It was really like a god coming to the dust, making countless people in the Eagle dynasty tremble. Beside, Li Ziye stood expressionless. She was dressed in white, with a long sword on her back, with a restrained edge. 610 looks like an ordinary female swordsman. But if you draw your sword out of its sheath, it will definitely make the whole world tremble. Merge into the Dajin dynasty. The Eagle King had a lot of thoughts, so it was naturally impossible to agree. But it cannot be rejected outright. After all, the strength of the opponent is too terrifying. Once the other party is angered, I'm afraid he will explain here today. Although there are a large number of guards in front of him and behind him. There are also several royal family true monarchs and kings beside them. But he still didn't feel safe. He looked at Li Ziran, raised his head and smiled softly. Purple Mountain King, for such an important matter, it is natural for me to discuss it with the officials. It's better for Zishan King to live in peace for 2 days. I will discuss with the ministers and come up with a result. Li Ziran looked at him. He suddenly smiled, shook his head and said, "Do you know where I came from just now?" "How would I know that?" Condor King felt a sudden in his heart, felt that something was wrong, forced a smile. "I just came from the great Chen dynasty. The king of the Chen dynasty has been beheaded by my aunt." Li Ziran looked calm, but the words that came out of his mouth were like thunder, making everyone in the Eagle dynasty tremble. Their faces were full of horror. Dachin King. Beheaded again. 88%. Chapter 263 Saber Technique Upgraded. Death 3 Swords. The Eagle King was also full of horror. His face was quite pale. Is the great Chen King dead? He felt a little dazed. Except for the shocking knife 10 years ago. Whether it is their Condor dynasty or Yinshan dynasty. There has never been a record of a human king being beheaded by an outsider. And now, Da Chenrenwang, who came to the throne almost at the same time as him and was about the same age. He was beheaded again. A wave of fear rose in him. Looking at Li Ziran, who looked calm above. What is the other party going to do? Merge into my Dajin, you can live. I don't want to. Then I have no choice but to send you to be with Da Chenrenwang. Li Ziran's voice was calm, and he said calmly. As his voice fell, the entire Condor King fell silent. All civil and military officials in the Manchu dynasty looked at the direction of the palace, waiting for the king to make a choice. The two dynasties of Zhenggu Lingyu. The Great Chen dynasty had a much stronger backbone. And the Condor dynasty has never had much backbone. Therefore, a large number of people from the Great Chen dynasty came out, not afraid of death, and let people see their backbone of the Great Chen dynasty. And the Eagle dynasty. Until now, no one came out either. This is related to the history of the Condor dynasty. Although the Condor dynasty is a continuous country. But in fact, however, it was seized by foreigners many times, and then recaptured by the royal family. Hearing Li Ziran's ultimatum, the Condor King turned pale. He wanted to stall for time. But the other party obviously didn't give him this chance. Thinking of 10 years ago, On's father was cut to pieces with a single knife. He became more and more frightened. He believes Li Ziran will definitely do what he says. Think here, he hastened to speak. I am naturally willing to merge into Dajin, and only under the rule of Dajin can the people of our dynasty live better. This statement fell. Many courtiers and common people have dim eyes. Although not much backbone, but there are still some after all. They are actually complicated in their hearts. I hope that the king of people will be tougher and not afraid of death. I also hope that King Ren can accept Dajin's request and avoid their death. I hope you will do what you say. Quote, Li Ziran looked at the Condor King indifferently, and with a single step, he entered the palace directly. He wants to sit here until Dajin arranged for people to come and take over. At the same time, he also wanted to collect the spiritual coins of the Condor Eagle dynasty. He is very clear. This time, the main purpose of the sudden attack on the major spiritual domains was the spiritual coins. 2 months passed quietly, in the face of absolute strength. Not only the Dachan dynasty and the Shenying dynasty compromised. That is, the major forces of Baihua Lingyu and Tianan Lingyu have shown their invincible strength in Lingyu after killing chickens to warn monkeys. All these forces have also compromised. There is only death if there is no compromise. Who dares not to compromise? At the same time, the strength revealed by Dajin in this battle also shocked everyone. 9 Changes King. Dajin possesses the extremely terrifying 9 Changes King. And far more than just one. So powerful, let all spiritual realms despair. Their strongest is nothing more than the King of 4 transformations. How big is the gap with the King of 9 changes? There is simply no hope of confrontation. Dajin Lingyu. In the depths of the Dajin Palace. Ding. Your family's martial art, the underworld Dao San Dao, killed a Yuan Wu Tianjin. The murderous nature was crazy, and the death aura soared to the sky, as if the underworld descended, comprehending the esoteric meaning, ghosts and gods descend from heaven. Ding. Your family's martial art, the underworld Dao San Dao, kills a nascent soul Tianjin, devours the soul, kills the light into pieces, and pulls down a Death Star beam transformed into the Death Master form. Li Yu looked at the message that popped up in front of her, her eyes suddenly opened. Beheading a Yuan Wu Tianjin, a nascent soul lord. Where did Yuan Wu Tianjin come from? Where did the nascent soul Tianjin come from? He stood up directly, with a look of coldness in his eyes. Don't have time to look at the esoteric meaning, ghosts and gods falling from heaven, and the upgraded 3 forms of death. He went directly to the teleportation circle. Several people in the family. Practicing the underworld Dao 3 swordsmen. Only Li Daoyan, Li Zimo, and Li Zihan. And Li Zimo and Wudong are together. With the strength of Wudong. In this spiritual domain, he didn't worry at all. After all, the origin of the fog pupil is too amazing. Born from the spirit of the sacred. And go through the back soil and the harvest point. Strong strength. It can be called the second strongest in the Dajin dynasty, other than him. Don't say it's in this spiritual realm. It is within the big domain. He believes, even Wudong's strength is completely capable of confronting nascent soul Tianjin, and even beheading him. And the person who killed a Yuan Wu Tianjin and a nascent soul Tianjin with the 3 swords of the underworld. He guessed, most likely it is the daughter Li Duyan. Quote. Night demons, it's still chasing the sun. Li Yu's figure flashed and appeared in the teleportation circle. He whispered in his heart. Those who have a grudge against him, but who can take out Yuanwu Tianjin and nascent soul Tianjin. There are only these two forces. Call. His figure disappeared in the teleportation circle in an instant. And at this time, outside the capital of the Great Chen dynasty, the corner of Li Daoyan's mouth was bleeding, she was holding a big knife, and her eyes were extremely sharp, staring at the group of people opposite. Next to her, Li Zihan's body was covered with blood, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were extremely fierce. Just like a ferocious tigress, angry and full of murderous intent. The two stood together, looks exactly like a pair of twin sisters. Opposite, a group of people had expressions of shock in their eyes, and their faces were quite ugly. In front of them, there were two mutilated bodies. Their two younger brothers. Unexpectedly, after only a few face-to-face encounters, the other party Qianhao fought hard and got injured and beheaded. Think of the other party's fierce, death-filled saber technique. They all felt a little cold. That almost doesn't belong to the saber technique of the human world. It's saber technique from the underworld. The saber technique that brought death to the world. Wrap around. These two people can't be let go, they must be killed. The leader looked cold, holding a blue long sword, and waved his hand fiercely. Immediately, the 12 Yuanwu heavenly lords and nascent soul heavenly lords behind him moved. It directly turned into rays of light, surrounding Li Daokai and Li Mother Child in the middle of the rain. The cold and terrifying momentum soared into the sky. One after another soared in 10 spreads, as if to cut the whole world. The terrifying momentum shook the heavens and the earth. The great Chen King, who was hundreds of miles away, trembled violently, as if they were about to collapse. A man named Da Chen looked terrified, and was suppressed on the ground by the terrifying aura of a man named Yuanwu Tianjin and nascent soul Tianjin, unable to move. 88%. Chapter 264. The Great Emperor's Orthodoxy. Court Death. Who are you? Li Daoyan looked at these nascent soul Tianjin and Yuanwu Tianjin vigilantly, and asked. Before, a magical medicine with legs rushed towards her, and before she could react, it rushed into her arms. Then, this group of people appeared. Without further ado. Straight to her, she naturally fought back with all her strength. Cooperate with his daughter Li Zihan to kill the two who came out. However, both of them were seriously injured. After all, that is a Yuanwu Tianjin, a nascent soul Tianjin. Within this spiritual realm, the strength is astonishing, reaching the limit of a king. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party underestimated the enemy, the underworld Dao San Dao, that the two of them used would be extremely terrifying, and every move would never return. I'm afraid it won't be able to kill the opponent. And now the opponent still has 13 companions. All are Yuanwu Tianjin and nascent soul Tianjin. Although just now, amazing changes have taken place in the underworld Dao San Dao. Let their mother and daughter's strength increase greatly. But it can't stop the 12 Yuanwu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs. The dead don't need to know. The voice of the only leader who didn't make a move was cold. He was wearing a white robe, extremely gorgeous, with his hair tied up at 810, and he looked middle-aged. The cyan long sword in his hand is extremely cold and sharp. It is obviously a very powerful sword. An extremely terrifying swordsmanship rushed out of him. Compared with Li Daoyan and Li Zihan, Martial Dao's sincerity is not weak at all. The same as Lingyun level Xiaocheng. Conclude the 12th Yuanshan slaughter formation. Chop off their heads and take back that quasi-magic medicine. He ordered coldly, falling with the sound. Immediately, the 12 heavenly monarchs surrounded Li Daoyan and Li Zihan. The momentum of his body soared, and sword shadows filled the air, turning into 12 long swords that pierced the sky and stood on the ground. These 12 long swords piercing the heavens and the earth are extremely awe-inspiring. From a distance, it looks like 12 unattainable sword mountains. Horror scene. It made everyone in Dachan Wangdu, 100 miles away, full of fear. Some knowledgeable courtiers. She was trembling even more, her face pale. God, this is the legendary emperor. With a single blow, you can destroy mountains, and level the city's heavenly king. 3 forms of death. The first form, evil mirror. Li Daoyan's black hair danced without wind, and the bloody long knife in her hand trembled slightly. An unimaginable death power radiated from her eyes. Faintly behind, there is infinity to which the mirror of evil can be manifested. This is the underworld. The whole body of Nijing was bloody, and it directly reflected the crimes of Yuanwu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs who formed the 12 Yuan Chen slaughter formation. Boom. Li Daoyan slashed out with a single knife. The bloody death knife is mighty. Like the underworld follows and cuts out. The endless evil mirror roared, taking the soul away. This is also the purest death knife. Any living being. Under this death's knife, everyone feels fear from the bottom of their hearts. At this time, all the heavenly monarchs around felt their scalps tingling and their hearts were terrified. If it weren't for the formation of the 12 Yuanshan killing formation, they will definitely run the first time. Horrible. This is the meaning of death. Much scarier than before. See this knife. They seem to have seen the underworld approaching, and they want to take them into it, and they will never be reborn forever. 12 Yuanshan, the sword swings the world. The leader drinks cold. Boom. The 12 sky-reaching sword shadows shook. Invisible ripples spread out crazily. Every ripple is like a sword chi with endless sharpness and endless killing. Sword chi collided with death cut by Li Dayan. Silently, a large number of sword chi fell directly into death and completely melted. 12 Yuan Chen, sword shadows form a net. The leader's pupils contracted and he drank coldly again. His heart is also extremely dignified. How could there be such a terrifying person in this small spiritual domain? Obviously the opponent's cultivation base has not yet reached Yuanwu realm. But all strength. But it was terrible, especially this death saber technique. It's almost like the underworld from death. And convenience is the representative of death, it can kill all life. Boom. As he spoke again, a large number of sword shadows were split from the 12 Dao Tongtian sword mountain. Every sword shadow twisted like a snake, turning into a giant net. The death cut out by Li Dayan was caught with a net, and they annihilated each other non-stop. And at this moment, Li Zihan suddenly shouted angrily. Bullying my mother. I fight with you. Clang. The sound of the knife trembled. The air of death's sword, sweeping across the sky. The first form of death's three forms. Evil mirror. Immediately, a large number of evil spirits swept across the sky again, and the underworld was extremely deadly and terrifying. Slashing out with a long knife is like cutting the world. It's this knife again. The leader's heart skipped a beat. He hastily opened his mouth and drank. 12 Yuanshan, the sword mountain falls. Boom. Immediately, the 12 Yuanwu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs looked dignified. The sky-penetrating sword mountain behind them smashed down in an instant. Just like the real 12 mountains of swords smashed down. Void tremors. Boom and boom. It was as if hundreds of millions of divine thunders exploded between the sky and the earth, and the terrifying sound waves made people's eardrums shatter. Bang bang. This was the strongest blow of the 12th Yuanshan killing formation. It is also the strongest blow that gathers 12 Yuanwu and nascent soul Tianjin. Whether it is the death knife cut by Li Dayan. It was Li Zihan's death knife, and everything exploded. The sword mountain has not yet fallen. The terrifying sword chi, the pressure of the sword made the mother and child's mouths bleed, making it difficult to move. The two looked at the falling sword mountain. We all know that this time we are afraid that we will be doomed. The strength of the opponent is too strong. 12 Yuanwu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs. It can also form a large attack formation. Unless their cultivation base can be promoted a few more times. Otherwise it is impossible to fight. See this scene. The leading middle-aged man finally showed a smile on his face. No matter why these two women are so powerful. After all, they are not their opponents and will be suppressed and killed. He doesn't care if there is any powerful force behind the opponent. No matter how strong, can it be as strong as their Holy Land of 10,000 swords? Great Emperor lineage is immortal. Although their 10,000 swords Holy Land has fallen. But it is far from being comparable to those who are not the Great Emperor. But at this moment, a shocking cold shout came from a distance, with a monstrous anger. You. Court death. 89%. Chapter 265 One punch smashes the 12 heavenly monarchs. Accompanied by a shocking cold drink. There is also an indescribably monstrous punch. The fist is as blazing as the scorching sun falling from the sky, and the purple energy is surging, sweeping across the sky. Half of the sky was covered by purple air. The clouds in the sky exploded in an instant. Purple chi is 3,000 miles from the east. The pupils of the leading middle-aged man shrank violently, and his body trembled slightly. Powerful. Terribly strong. Even if he is not in the spiritual domain, he can't take the opponent's punch. To know, he is a Yuanwu 6th stage heavenly king. And here is the spiritual realm. The spiritual domain cannot burst out cultivation base that exceeds the limit of the king. That is to say, he was full of horror. The opponent is using the cultivation base of the king's limit, and broke out this shocking punch. How can it be? His face was full of disbelief and disbelief. The ultimate cultivation base. How could it be possible to hit such a punch? Don't wait for him to think about it. The towering fist of purple energy came across like a supreme mountain. The mountain of swords smashed by the 12 roads was put together with this sacred mountain. It's nothing but trivial, not worth mentioning. Boom. Bang bang bang. The 12 sword mountains were instantly crushed and exploded. And those 12 Yuan Wu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs had bulging eyeballs, their faces were full of horror, and their bodies flew out, coughing up blood. Terrifying power rushed into their bodies. Under their fear and despair. Let their bodies be torn apart and blood spilled into the sky. One after another nascent soul rushed out in fear. But not a few meters away. It also shattered in the air, and the soul was completely wiped out. No one has arrived. He punched him from a distance. Then he beat the 12 Yuan Wu and nascent soul Tianjin to death. Such a terrifying scene. In the capital of the great Chen King, those knowledgeable courtiers widened their eyes and trembled. What a terrifying scene. The legendary Tianjin. He was blown to pieces with a punch from far away. For them, this is nothing short of a myth. It's a legend. No, even in myths and legends, they have never heard of such a shocking and incredible scene. Looking at the place where the purple energy is so mighty, sweeping the world. There was awe on their faces. Quickly knelt on the ground, as if kneeling a god. In their hearts, this is the god. Only gods can have such terrifying power. Who are you? The middle-aged man who was the leader had a pale face, staring at the direction where the purple air was soaring, and said in horror. Because he did not participate in the formation. So not getting punched to death. But the fear in his heart. But it is no less than the 12 companions who have fallen. And even more, Sheng watched 12 companions being beaten to death by the other party. And this is still a spiritual realm. In addition to fear, there is still fear in his heart. What the hell is this existence? How could it be so scary? The founder of their 10,000 Swords Holy Land, the invincible 10,000 Swords Great Emperor, was nothing more than that when he was young. Can be in the spiritual realm. The existence of nascent soul level strength broke out. It was extremely terrifying. And now, but the other party is in the spiritual domain, bursting out at least the strength of nascent soul 8th stage, maybe even 9th stage. Even if it is divine transformation venerable. It is impossible to be so terrifying. Even the existence of a large realm above the divine transformation venerable. It's also impossible to be so scary. Could it be possible? This is actually a terrifying God Emperor. He trembled. Above divine transformation venerable, it is Kongming realm. The existence of this realm is called God King. Already the King of Gods. The suppression of Wanyu is extremely terrifying. It is the Emperor. That kind of existence can collapse the world with one word, and tear apart the universe with one look. King among the gods. It is already an existence that walks the path of God. The stars in the sky are all projectiles that can be kneaded at will in front of them. Let out a long whistle. It can completely collapse a large area, and all living beings will crawl. And only that exists. In this spiritual realm. Only then can the terrifying strength of nascent soul 8th stage and 9th stage be brought into play. That weight exists. It is simply impossible to appear in the spirit realm. The spiritual domain cannot limit the existence of such horrors. They can completely destroy the spiritual realm with one move of hand and one foot, and everything will disappear. Asking for flowers. The spiritual domain can't restrict them at all. The limit that the spiritual domain can limit. It is divine transformation venerable. Then if the person who appeared was not the terrifying God Emperor. Who is that? Could it be? Could it be a mighty warrior who aspires to become the great emperor? Various thoughts swirled in his heart in fear. But whatever it is, he could not suppress the fear. Tread. Footsteps came. Li Yu's face was cold, and she walked out of the purple air in a black robe. He has black hair flying all over his head, and his eyes are charming. Whoever finds out, own daughter and granddaughter almost died. It's impossible to be in a good mood. At this point he was very angry. A terrifying killing intent filled his heart. If he hadn't made a quick decision, he would have chosen Li Dao to drive here. Instead, go to Li Zimo first. Then under the siege of 12 Yuan Wu and nascent soul Tianjin. Wait for him to arrive. The bones of my daughter and granddaughter must be cold. What is the most painful thing in the world? White-haired people send black-haired people. Get along for 10 years. Plus this is the own body. Naturally, he had already regarded Li Daoyan and Li Zihan as his daughters and granddaughters. Father. Li Dayan relaxed all over and let out a soft cry. But Li Zihan's eyes were red, and tears fell. Grandfather. Zihan almost died, and I almost never saw you again, Grandpa. I saw Li Zihan, who was pear blossom with rain. Li Yu's face grew colder, staring at the middle-aged man with murderous intent in his eyes. Your Excellency, this is a misunderstanding. Chong Yu swallowed his saliva. His scalp was so numb that it seemed to split open, and he opened his mouth quickly. His face was bloodless, his eyes could not be suppressed, and all he showed was fear. He no longer had the arrogance and prestige of being a disciple of the great emperor's orthodoxy. Misunderstand. God came today, but he can't save you. Li Yu's voice was cold and her black hair was flying. The purple light on the right foot is mighty, and he suddenly stepped on the opponent. He doesn't care who the other party is. If you dare to kill his daughter or granddaughter, then there is no need to discuss it. Only death. What? 89%. Chapter 266 Smash the Emperor's Soldiers. Kacha kacha. The void seemed to be shattered. The ground was torn apart abruptly, and huge boulders instantly turned into dust. Centered on Chong Yu, a huge footprint appeared clearly, and it was still crazily sinking downward. It's like stepping on the whole earth with one foot. An indescribably terrifying pressure pressed hard on Chong Yu's body. His face was pale, without a trace of blood. There was fear in his eyes. Did not dare to have any hesitation. He directly crushed an ancient blue jade on his body. Suddenly a blue smoke rose. The blue smoke condensed directly in front of him into the phantom of an old man. The old man has white hair and beard, a cold face, and a lofty temperament. But suddenly appeared, facing Li Yu's earth-shattering kick abruptly. His complexion also changed suddenly from 0-20, his pupils constricted, he raised his head in shock, and said hastily, "Easy." At the same time, there was also a strange fluctuation in his body. A phantom of divine swords with different colors appeared behind him. Every phantom of the divine sword carried a ray of extreme terror. As if once suppressed the world and shattered the universe. If there is a person who knows the goods, must be shocked to recognize these swords. It was actually the emperor soldier of the great emperor of 10,000 swords who swept across the sky and the earth and suppressed a peerless restricted area with his own power 10,000 years ago. The emperor soldiers carry the Tao of a supreme great emperor, carrying their understanding of the Wanfa of the world. The horror of power. If it is fully recovered, it is almost equivalent to the fat chubby. But at this time, the old man just condensed a trace of the shape of an imperial soldier. But even so, also powerful to terrible. The void is trembling violently. Above 9 heavens, billowing dark clouds gathered, and amidst lightning and thunder, the entire spiritual domain seemed to be in fear. What? Li Yu stared at the phantom of the divine sword. He could feel a thrilling aura from that divine sword. Certainly, that is not for these phantoms, but the body seen through these phantoms. Even if it is as strong as him, under divine transformation can be honored. The sporadic body breath that can be seen through these phantoms of the divine sword. It also made him feel extremely scary. That is the horror that he is far from being able to touch now. However, he has no intention of holding back. After all, this is still the spiritual realm. In the spirit realm, he has the final say. Unless the other party can directly erase the spiritual domain, then he has nothing to say. Boom. The phantom of the divine sword pierces the sky and the earth. Violently collided with his stepped foot. His kick of purple air soared into the sky, overlapping with 9th stage purple mountains, containing Shiwei power. And that divine sword seemed to have broken the blockade of the spiritual realm. Reached an extremely terrible state. There are 36 swords in total. Each breath is different. Some are sharp, some are cold, some are fiery, some are icy cold, some are vibrant, and some are lifeless. But even if these divine sword phantoms are so powerful that they are terrifying, the blockade of the spiritual realm has been somewhat broken. But it can no longer compete with Li Yu. In the spiritual realm, he is an invincible existence. Divine transformation venerable is here to shed blood. God King comes and dies. Bang 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 bang. The phantom of a divine sword was instantly shattered to pieces by the terrifying force. It's just a shadow after all. Even though she was already extremely strong, it was still not enough to look at in front of Li Yu. And the old man with white hair and beard opened his mouth and wanted to say something. But the ninth stage Purple Mountain falls. His body was also crushed instantly. Ah! Chong Yu screamed in despair. An unimaginable terrifying force penetrated his body. He flew straight out, and was already torn apart in the air, blood spilling everywhere. Boom! The earth shook violently. A huge footprint with a length and width of more than 30 miles appeared on the spot, 4 or 5 miles deep. A large amount of groundwater and magma burst out together, forming a terrifying spectacle. Li Zihan stood on the edge. She stared at this scene with wide eyes, shocked and surprised in her heart. Grandpa is too strong. One punch smashed 12 Yuanwu and nascent soul heavenly lords. Step on the opponent's strongest existence with 1 foot. Even the phantom of the divine sword that made her heart beat wildly couldn't stop Grandpa's kick. The earthquake of the earth spread to the capital of Dachan King. It was as if a major earthquake had hit the entire capital, and the houses were cracked, as if they were about to collapse. Even the walls. They were all torn open, which was shocking. Everyone, whether it is a court official or a private practitioner, all of them were pale and filled with fear. Horrible. This is simply a legendary god and demon. There was no longer any resistance in their hearts. Dajin dynasty. It is a dynasty established by gods and demons, how can they fight against it? It's better to merge as soon as possible. They will be the subjects of the gods and demons dynasty in the future. Many people think so. Even many officials are the same. Even many old courtiers who were originally loyal and determined not to surrender. I also sighed a long time in my heart, and gave up some perseverance. The other party is chasing this elixir. Dachan Palace, in a small and deep courtyard. Li Yu frowned and looked at the elixir that Li Daoyan took out. This elixir is shaped like a divine bird, its feathers are red like fire, its roots are like the claws of a divine bird, its roots are crystal clear, sacred and mysterious. There is an amazing fragrance that permeates the air. Even if it's just smelling. Li Yu has a feeling of being ecstatic, and her soul is extraordinarily clear. The spirit of this elixir is extremely strong. At this moment, there is a feeling of panic and fear. Moore 0.4 looked like he was ready to escape at any time. If Li Daoyan hadn't imprisoned him, he might have escaped. This elixir can escape the pursuit of more than a dozen Yuanwu and nascent soul Tianjin. It can be seen that the ability to escape is strong. Once escaped, Li Yu didn't know if she could catch her back. They call it a quasi-magic drug. Li Dayan said softly. Quasi-magic medicine. Li Yu fixed her eyes and said in surprise. He is no longer a wuxia shaman. I have also collected various things about the ancient great emperor. According to legend, when the ancient great emperor reaches the limit of his lifespan, he will look for the supreme magic medicine to continue his life. There are even some amazing medicines. It can make the ancient great emperor, who is invincible in the world, live a second life. And now, the elixir in front of him is called a quasi-magic medicine by the other party. 89%. Chapter 267 Surprising Harvest, Enlightenment Quasi-Magic Medicine. Li Yu's eyes flickered a few times. Quasi-miraculous medicine. He also couldn't see the use of this quasi-miraculous medicine. But he could see. This quasi-miracle medicine is very young, it should not be born for a long time. Certainly. For quasi-miracle medicine, that must be 1,000-year, or even 10,000-year. He was wondering whether to turn him into a demon. Such a quasi-miracle medicine is obviously extremely precious. If used, it is a non-renewable resource. And if it turns into a demon, that is to turn non-renewable resources into renewable resources. It's amazing to think about it. He once collected a legend about the ancient great emperor. There is a supreme great emperor named Shanwang Great Emperor. Legend has it that the main body is an immortal medicine. Elixir of immortality. This is the exclusive magical medicine of the great emperor. Less than the great emperor realm, hardly ever. He didn't know why. Anyway, the sporadic records and legends he collected all said so. 21 It can be seen from this. The nature of the elixir of immortality is terrifying. Once turned into a demon. That is the shocking genius who really has the hope of proving the Tao is the emperor. And the quasi-magic medicine in front of him is naturally much worse. But even if you can't prove the Tao is the emperor, it should be hopeful to become an existence close to the great emperor in the future. That kind of existence, it has also far surpassed divine transformation venerable. After thinking about it for a while, he decided to turn this quasi-magic medicine into a demon. Fog Tong was transformed by a ray of energy from the inborn Holy Spirit. According to Yu Shengfeng Yannian, It is a peerless treasure that can be promoted above divine transformation. Above divine transformation. That is Kongming God King. Divine transformation venerable is already a true God. And Kongming realm. He is already the king of gods. As for the quasi-miracle medicine in front of him, it is obvious that his future achievements may be even more astonishing than Wu Tong. Of course he couldn't let it go. After the decision, he looked at his daughter Li Daoyan with a serious expression on his face. Do you know the origin of that group of people? He had gone through the storage rings of those people. The astonishing wealth inside made him quite shocked and pleasantly surprised. 13 Yuan Wu and nascent soul heavenly monarchs added up. More than 400 million spirit coins. And this is just the cash of Lingbi and Tiandi spirit stones. Other kinds of magic treasures, panacea, spiritual materials, formation, treasures and so on. The sum definitely exceeds 500 million spiritual coins. He even didn't know many things in it. But in the storage rings of these people, there is only one identity token engraved with the word, Wanjian. For this, naturally, he had no idea what power he belonged to. But from the phantoms of the divine sword condensed by the old man, he can see. This force is absolutely terrifying. It is even more terrifying than the treading road and the night demons. I don't know. They didn't talk about owning status. Li Deyin shook her head. That group of people were full of arrogance, and originally they looked down on people from the spiritual realm like them. That's why the two of them walked out casually at the beginning and started to fight their mother and daughter. After those two were killed, the group of talents seemed shocked and angry, and opened their formation directly, wanting to kill them. Be careful. I will let Dijong sit in the ancient spiritual realm. Li Yu tapped the armrest of the seat lightly and ordered. Then, with the quasi-miraculous medicine, he planned to go back to Dajin Yu. But just stood up, before I could get up. A strange look suddenly appeared in his eyes. Look to the west, comma. 3 pure white and flawless heavenly horses with wings on their backs flew across the sky, pulling a pure white chariot. The wheels are like the sun, rolling in the air. In the chariot, Wang Ce from Takong Road sat quietly in lotus position. Although his face is wrinkled, but his clothes are white and clean. There is a temperament of being out of the dust, like a banished fairy coming to the world. A snow-white long sword with a sheath quietly floated beside him, flakes of snowflakes flew out, and then melted into the void. After the chariot, there are also 5 middle-aged or young men and women riding various strange beasts. There is a white tiger with 3 heads, grinning, full of viciousness in sleep. There is a blue-green flood dragon with a sinuous body and cold dragon eyes. There are also old cows that are as black as ink, with a faint divine light blooming all over their bodies. Every strange beast is extremely powerful and breathtaking. Even if an ordinary king faces it, he will be frightened and afraid to approach it at all. And the owner on the back is even more terrifying. Without exception, everyone is Yuan Wu Tianjin. Either with a strange smile on his face, or cold and ruthless, or a faint expression, or aloof. Several people look down at the mountains and rivers below, and the people in the city. His eyes are also full of indifference, like looking at mortal ants, dead trees and grass people. Master, the lord of this area's spiritual domain, why do you need to come here in person? I will wait for the senior brothers to come, and I will definitely be able to avenge junior brother Qin Zan. A white-faced, beardless middle-aged man spoke respectfully to Wang Ce who was sitting in the lotus position on the chariot. He rides on the back of a dragon, with a burly body and a majestic aura like a sacred mountain. Wait to hear, how was the 9-eyed Dao removed? Wang Ce's face was indifferent, and his voice was equally indifferent. 9 eyes. I heard. The 5 middle-aged and young men's expressions were fixed and solemn. The middle-aged man with white face and beardless bowed deeply and said respectfully. The disciple understands the meaning of the master. Then, 9-eyed Dao is enmity with a master of the spiritual domain. But Juyan Dao 293 didn't take it seriously, and didn't to put in one's eyes at all. Manpower was dispatched time and time again. Beheaded by the opponent time and time again. Also in this counter kill again and again, the opponent grew up rapidly. At last, he jumped up and proclaimed the divine transformation, with overwhelming power. But 10 years. Then he directly killed the 2 divine transformation venerables of the 9 Eyes Dao, and wiped out the high-level ones. As a result, the entire 9-eyed Dao was delisted and its inheritance was cut off. However, he was still somewhat disapproving. Juyan Dao was extremely unlucky and met Yuanyu Venerable when he was young. But how many people in the world can compare with Yuanyu Venerable? That's now. They, Bailing Deu, are rumored to be the most hopeful to take the last step, surpassing the divine transformation, and achieving the existence of the God King. The momentum is surging. If it weren't for the lack of intention to unify the Bailing area. Now all parties are estimated to be under the rule of Yuanyu Venerable. And the master of the little spirit realm who offended them on the empty path. How can it be compared with Yuanyu Venerable when he was young? The master came here in person. Obviously he thinks highly of the other party too much. He has decided, after a while, I will do it directly and kill all the people in the Li family. Also let master know, there is only one Yuanyu Venerable 10,000 year. There is no need to be so cautious when facing these ants-like people from the spiritual realm. 90%. Chapter 268 Divine Transformation Venerable arrives. A Yuan Wu 8th stage. 5 Yuan Wu C to 6th stage. It's really luck and I can't stop it. That inexplicable force, 13 Yuan Wu and nascent soul heavenly lords sent me more than 400 million spiritual coins. Here comes another group of Yuan Wu Tianjin. A smile appeared on the corner of Li Yu's mouth. This batch of Yuan Wu Tianjin. He did see the origin. Disciple who treads the empty path. From Lu Shen, he got the memory of Qin Zan, the Dao Yuan Wu Tianjin who stepped into the sky back then. Clearly recognize the old man in the lotus position sitting on the snow-white chariot. It is Qin Zan's master, one of the disciples of the Divine Transformation Venerable in Takong Dao, and one of the high-ranking members of Takong Dao. Wang Ce. This is the big elder of the empty walk. The status is extremely high in the empty road, second only to the existence of 2 Divine Transformation Venerables, and several Yuan Wu and nascent soul 9th stage. Actually, he was also a little weird. A Divine Transformation Venerable. Did not teach nascent soul Tianjin's disciple, but taught Yuan Wu Tianjin instead. Shan Dao and Martial Dao, these are 2 completely different paths. Although there is no shortage of peerless enchanting martial arts dual cultivation. But that's also a thankless exercise. Fao dual cultivation does not necessarily mean that same rank is invincible. Whether the strength is strong or not depends on the person after all, not on the path of practice. Certainly, Fao dual cultivation is definitely much better than cultivators and practitioners with the same rank and qualifications. But Fao dual cultivation is doomed to be unable to keep up with the cultivation progress of cultivators and practitioners with the same aptitude. The added combat power is useless at all. Others can easily kill you with a large realm. So in this vast world, very few people will go to dual cultivation. So, he just felt it. That Divine Transformation Venerable on Takong Dao actually taught a Yuan Wu Tianjin, and felt extremely strange. You guys are rich enough. It allows me to collect the 800 million spiritual coins. Li Yu murmured. Originally, he is launching the entire Dajin dynasty. It is necessary to annex all the surrounding spiritual domains to obtain a large number of spiritual coins. Just can't think of it. I met a group of Yuan Wu and nascent soul Tianjin before. Now there is another batch of Yuan Wu Tianjin. It seems that there is no need for the spiritual coins collected by the spiritual realm. Call. He moved. Step by step, he walked towards the outside of Dajin King's capital. And at this time, tens of thousands of miles away from Dajin Lingyu. The 2 beings riding on the exquisite flying boat are holding wine glasses and drinking lightly. The wine glass is crystal clear and exudes a faint light. The wine in the wine glass is like amber, magnificent and colorful. Among them, there are swimming dragons hovering in it, with a very strong aura. The whole flying boat is more than 10 miles long, like a real dragon flying across the sky, with monstrous momentum. In the wild mountains below, a large number of strange beasts and demonic beasts trembled under the terrifying aura, lying on the ground and not daring to move. There was fear in his eyes. Fly around. There is even more magnificent divine light surging, like a sea tide, even more like a world. Brother Qingtian, is the master of the spiritual domain really so powerful? It was actually able to kill the clone of your divine sense that descended from you, relying on Yuan Wu Tianjin. Left. It is a night demon with a white robe. The divine feathers behind him are bright and golden, as if cast from pure gold. The extremely handsome face is like the most perfect masterpiece of heaven, and the pupils of his eyes are completely golden. A head of long hair also turned into gold, shining like the sun, like a golden waterfall hanging down. Very strong. If you and I step into the spiritual domain, we may not necessarily be their opponents. Yi Qingtian's face was gloomy, but his eyes were extremely dignified. He looked at his best friend in front of him. It is precisely because of this that I did not hesitate to invite you to come with me tens of billions of miles away. Such a strong master of the spiritual domain, it may be another Yuanyu Venerable. Yuanyu Venerable. Hear the name. The golden-haired divine venerable's complexion changed slightly, his eyes full of fear. This peak powerhouse of Bailing Deu. But beheaded the three gods venerable of the night demon race. On the battlefield of hundreds of clans. It is even more powerful, and it can be called one of the existences that cannot be provoked. It is also one of the strongest pillars on the side of the human race. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and chuckled. Brother Qingtian, you still worry too much. Existences like Yuanyu Venerable are created at the right time and place, and they hope to step into the legendary God King realm. We are waiting for all parties in the big domain, and it is difficult to get 10 in 15 years. How can another one come out of this small spiritual realm? Yi Qingtian still had a calm face. Be careful and make no big mistakes. My night demon clan has yet to regain strength since I encountered a big calamity 10,000 years ago. Since such a powerful master of the spiritual domain has become enmity, I'd rather kill the wrong one than let him go. His voice was cold and ruthless, even for this. To completely destroy a spiritual realm. There will be no fluctuations in his heart. The left and right are nothing but the spiritual domain of the human race. Although the human race is strong. But there are also peerless enemies. For example, Yuanyu Venerable and other Gaidai powerhouses have already been targeted by powerful enemies several times their own, unable to move. That's why they can be unscrupulous and treat the human race as blood. However, since their night demon clan suffered a catastrophe 10,000 years ago, it has converged a lot. The branches they sent out. On the surface, there was no massacre of the human race. It's just Liangguos supporting the forces of the human race and donating the necessary human flesh and soul to them. Right, Venerable, the divine power of the night demons, nodded and agreed. They night goblins. No more big accidents. Rumble. The exquisite and miraculous flying boat is flying across the sky, and its speed is extremely fast. It was like a flash of lightning, piercing the sky, mighty and mighty. Where is the capital of the great Chen dynasty? Sure enough, it's a small city in the spiritual domain. Even if it's the capital of one dynasty, it doesn't have much weather. Behead that Li Daoyan, and then go and kill all the other members of the Li family, this mission is complete. The white-faced, beardless middle-aged man thought casually in his heart. But suddenly, he just saw a shadow walking out of that insignificant small city. Walk towards them step by step. 90%. Chapter 269. Breaking the restrictions of the spiritual realm. Isn't this the ancestor of the Li family? The white-faced and beardless middle-aged man, Shen Cheng, said in astonishment. But what followed was great joy. It's actually here. Hit the target of this mission. Originally, their master's plan is to deal with the rest of the Li family first. Finally, go to the Dajin spiritual realm, step on the ancestor of the Li family, and erase the Dajin spirit realm. After all, if Dajin is destroyed, then everyone in the Li family must have felt it. If hiding, it's not easy for them to find them. If you drill casually into the wild mountains, even if they are all Yuanwu Tianjin, it is impossible to find them. Unless the nascent soul Tianjin who is good at calculation is invited. But over and over again. And it takes a lot of time. So they might as well get rid of the younger generation of the Li family first. Finally, solve the ancestors of the Li family and the Dajin dynasty. Even if the ancestor of the Li family escaped, find someone. It's always faster than finding a group of people. The snow-white chariot stopped suddenly. The three snow-white heavenly horses pulling the cart let out a roar, and a fierce light appeared in their eyes. Although this heavenly horse looks gentle in character. In fact, but it is an extremely ferocious beast. When the horse's hooves step out, a mountain will be crushed. In the chariot, Wang Ce watched Li Yu approaching quietly. The robe on his body was not moving, his face was calm, looking at Li Yu's expression. 610 is like looking at ants on the ground, without any fluctuations. Behind him, except for Shen Cheng, a middle-aged man with a white face and beardless. The other four also had strange eyes and showed joy. Their thoughts were the same as Shen Cheng's. Can solve this Dajin patriarch here. Nature is the best. After all, this is not the Dajin dynasty. As long as Dajin is immortal, Dajin's luck is lingering. It is impossible for the rest of the Li family to know that their ancestor is dead. Exercise the technique of descending from the gods. You mere Yuan Wu Tianjin are not my opponents. Li Yu stopped 1,000 meters away, stood in the air, looked at the group of people on Takong Road and smiled softly. His voice is very thin. Also very flat. It's like telling a fact. In fact, this is also true, but in the ears of Wang Ci and others. But they were all stunned and speechless. The lord of the spiritual realm beheaded a Yuan Wu Tianjin from their Ta Kongdao. So rampant. Master, disciple, please order me to kill him. Shen Cheng quickly saluted Wang Ci on the chariot. Wang Ci nodded indifferently. He was sitting on the chariot with an old god. His eyelids were slightly raised, like an ancient Buddha. Get permission to. A look of joy appeared on Shen Cheng's face. He held out his right hand. Immediately, a long sword with a bright blue light emerged, and it was covered with strange lines. Clang. The sound of the sword sounding like a dragon chant resounded. No extra nonsense. Shen Cheng's sword. Go straight to Li Yu's hole. The whole sky. At this moment, there is an extra sword ray that is unmatched. Sword ray has a length of 100 meters, as if it wants to split the world and recreate the universe. Some huge boulders with a height of 3 or 4 people on the ground trembled, and then fell apart, shattering all over the ground. And it's so much more than that. Those shattered stones continued to shatter, and the surface was extremely smooth, as if cut by a divine sword. Just for a moment, those huge boulders were turned into dust all over the sky as they fell apart again and again. There is even a straight sword mark on the ground. Where the sword marks passed, everything is annihilated. This is the ultimate power of the 9 Changes King. And compared to the usual 9 Change King limit, be much stronger. A mere firefly can also shine light. Li Yu put one hand behind her back. A hand stretches out. He turned his palm into a knife. A knife suddenly slashed out. Boom. Behind him, there seems to be an evil mirror, the underworld, condensed out, which is extremely real. The knife that Li Daoyan slashed at the beginning. It is far inferior to the knife he cut at this moment. The underworld has its ups and downs. There are also hundreds of millions of evil spirits howling and screaming in it. The evil mirror of that side is reflected, forming an earth-shattering sword glow. It is extremely bright and gorgeous. It condenses an unimaginable death spirit. Wherever it goes, all the tangible and intangible things, CBEA, all wither death. Even with a stab from Shen Cheng. Also the same. It disintegrated powerlessly in midair, and each strand of sword chi seemed to let out a final wail, completely annihilated. It wasn't just this sword light that died. Shen Cheng discovered. I have all the insights about this breaking sky sword technique. Everything seemed to have died, and disappeared from his mind. What is this saber technique? His face was full of horror, and his eyeballs were about to pop out. Actually let the sword technique in my mind die. Can sword technique die too? It was the first time he knew. But soon, he no longer has any troubles. The mighty sword glow instantly slashed at his body. The few magical items that automatically protect the Lord on his body have no effect, and all of them are death. His body, soul, will. He also died the moment he came into contact with this sword glow. The sword light disappeared. It's as if it never happened. Shen Cheng stood blankly in the air, his eyes glazed over. The entire corpse was intact and fell directly downward. This horrible scene let Wang Ci stand up suddenly, his eyelids twitching. It also made the other 4 disciples behind him terrified. Their scalps were numb as if they were about to split open. They are creepy. What is this saber technique? It actually directly killed all the vitality of the elder brother, leaving nothing behind. This is horrible. Watch that stand in place. Li Yu, who seemed to have never moved, felt cold in their hearts. Horrible. This is an extremely terrifying existence. Definitely not the ordinary spirit realm person they imagined before. Who are you? Why are you targeting me? Wang Ci took a deep breath. A divine sword emerged in his hand, his eyes were sharp, and he drank coldly. All of his hair flew up. A majestic and terrifying momentum soared into the sky, completely shaking the blossoming white clouds in the sky. Am I targeting you? Li Yu was speechless. It's obvious that you have repeatedly come here to provoke me, okay. When was it not delivered to your door by yourself? What a shame to ask. It really opened his eyes. But it's useless to say too much. Since we're here, you all stay here, too. He spoke softly. Arrogance. I, Wang Ci, traversed the great domain of Bailing, and even went deep into the battlefield of hundreds of races, beheading more than 30 nascent soul and Yuan Wu of different races. I'd like to see what kind of alien you are pretending to be. How dare you target me on the way of stepping on the sky? If you don't kill you today, wouldn't you have the prestige of falling into the way of stepping on the sky? Wang Ci let out a long roar. He didn't wait for Li Yu to make a move, but acted first. A shot. It was a shock. There is a special kind of bloodline in the body that is stimulated. It broke a bit of the suppression of the spiritual domain. 90%. Chapter 270. Kill the Heavenly Monarch again. Death Knife Mountain. As a Tianjin-level powerhouse of Yuanwu 8th stage. Wang Ci and Bailing Deu. They are all one-on-one existences. Mentioning his name as Wang Ci made countless Devil Dao giants in the world tremble with fear. His reputation. It was completely killed with a long sword in his hand. On the battlefield of hundreds of races, he killed the alien Yuanwu and nascent soul Tianjin with fear. In the Bailing area, he also killed Devil Dao, and the Yaomen trembled. As one of the pillars of the eastern meridian of the Tukong Road, he possesses a combat power that is unparalleled in terror. And he has the blood of the God King in him. The family he belongs to has an extremely ancient origin, coming from a foreign land. Their family tree goes back over 40,000 years and can be linked to a God King. Although the blood of God King in his body is extremely meager. But after Yuanwu realm, he can also stimulate bloodline, not only the strength soars. And in the mortal realm and spiritual realm, it can also break through the limitations of heaven and earth, and exert a combat power far beyond the limit. Boom. The long sword in his hand is like a sky hanging across the sky, shining brightly. On the ground below, several 100-foot-high mountain peaks roared, and the mountains were torn apart. A deep sword mark was cut out on the ground, running across hundreds of miles, several miles deep, like an abyss. A boulder taller than a person jumped up first, then was cut by the invisible sword chi and shattered instantly. It actually broke the blockade of the spiritual realm. What method is this? Li Yu frowned and said in surprise. He felt a little dignified. It was able to break the blockade of the spiritual realm. This was beyond his expectation. Although he is not afraid of each other. But if the divine transformation venerable can also break through the spiritual barrier. That's trouble. Thoughts were spinning in his mind, but his movements didn't stop. Still standing upright as a knife. A pair of eyes are as calm as a frozen lake, with undulating waves. The next moment, the second form of death's three forms. Mountain of knives. Boom. Above the ground, a pale, colorless mountain of knives suddenly rose. On the top of the knife mountain, there seems to be a vague figure standing there. This figure was accompanied by the uplift of the knife mountain, and the eyes were full of lifelessness. A strange and terrifying breath rushed out. The shocking sword ray that Wang Ci slashed out was as if the Milky Way crossed the sky. Annihilated in an instant, disappeared without warning. It was as if it had never appeared from the beginning to the end. Even the peerless sword in his hand was obviously cultivated by the exotic treasure of heaven and earth. The light is also dim, and there are a few tiny cracks on the surface. Wang Ci was stunned. He is really dazed. This. What means? He looked at the mountain of knives that was still rising towards his position. Looking at the top of the knife mountain, there was that vague figure that seemed to exist, but also seemed to not exist. A chill gushed out of him. But it's not waiting for him to react. The blurry figure suddenly jumped up. It directly turned into a vast and pale knife light, and instantly slashed across him. The light of the sword is mighty. Fall to the ground. Immediately, all plants and life in a radius of hundreds of miles turned into dust and dissipated. Even boulders, mountains, rivers, houses. Also the same. It seems that there is an inexplicable breath of death supporting their existence, and they also collapsed. This. What is this? What saber technique? Wang Ci froze in place, looked at Li Yu with difficulty, and asked with difficulty. Three forms of death, saber technique, a product of the martial king. Li Yu said. He has black hair flying all over his head, and his eyes are calm, like an ancient god in the dust, but his breath is very peaceful. Yuan martial king product. Wang Ci let out a miserable laugh. It never occurred to him. I would actually come across the martial arts of Yuan martial king here. This terrifying martial art that is unimaginable. Among all the orthodoxy in Bailing Deu, there is none. Asking for flowers. This is the legendary martial arts. Call. His breath dissipated, and his body fell to the ground. Air. The faces of the four Yuanwu Tianjin riding all kinds of fierce beasts were pale, without a trace of blood. Their bodies were crumbling, and their faces were full of fear and despair. The eldest brother died, and they were just shocked. But now even the most powerful master who once slaughtered a nascent soul ninth stage true monarch. He actually died too, and the other party from beginning to end. Just out of a knife. This is horrible. Their master. But the combat power is extremely powerful. In the battlefield of hundreds of races, the alien races are terrified. How could you die here? To die in such a small spiritual domain. Their minds went blank, and they even forgot to run for their lives. When Li Yu's eyes turned to them, only then did they regain their wits, and their whole bodies trembled. I dare not resist at all. The four of them headed in four directions, crazily fleeing for their lives. How could you have escaped? Li Yu whispered. These four Yuan Wu Tianjin. In his eyes, it was all walking spirit stones minds. With a flat face, he slashed in four directions casually. Nascent soul Tianjin under a single strike, can shatter 1,000 miles away. Naturally, he can also under a single strike, beating the enemy thousands of miles away. Four pale sword lights swept across the sky. In just a flash, he caught up with the four Yuan Wu Tianjins and rushed past them. The bodies of the four Yuan Wu Tianjin froze, they lost all breath, and their bodies fell downward. As for their mounts, Li Yu was naturally beheaded casually. Ingested the storage rings of the 6 people, and then ordered Ji Daoyan to give the corpses of the 6 people to Lu Shen. He went straight back to Dajin Lingyu. Start looking at the wealth inside the 6 storage rings. Just had a look. His face is full of joy. 91%. Chapter 271 Obtain the treasure tree of gathering spirits. Over 600 million spirit coins and spirit stones. It's really hard to find nowhere to go through iron shoes, and it doesn't take much effort to get it. Li Yu is delighted. Plus the previous batch. The spiritual coins of several major spiritual domains have not been collected yet. He had collected enough spiritual coins. Without hesitation, he went directly to the coin hall. Cast all the spirit stones in the world into spirit coins. At this time, the sum of the spirit coins on his body has exceeded 200 million. Especially the leader of the Yuanwu 8th stage Tianjin. There are almost 400 million spirit coins and spirit stones on him. The wealth is amazing. It is worthy of having a special bloodline on its body, which can break some limitations of the spiritual realm. But beheaded this person. The next time I come back to Takong Road, I'm afraid it will be Divine Transformation Venerable. However, the Divine Transformation Venerable cannot be released lightly, and it is possible that the other party will hold back this breath for a while. He whispered to himself. There are only 2 Divine Transformation Venerables in 000. One wants to sit in sect, and the other wants to go to the battlefield of hundreds of clans. It is not easy to pull out your hand and come to Dajin. Not like night goblins. There are a lot of Divine Transformation and Divine Power Venerable, so I can take the time to come here. But even so, he was also more vigilant in his heart. Night demons, Takong said. There is also that unknown force that may be more powerful than these 2 parties. I, Li Yu, have always been kind to people. I didn't expect and unconsciously offended so many forces. He was a little sad. Why is it so difficult to be a good person? He just wanted to develop in peace of mind. Why did everyone come to provoke him? Call. He took a step forward, and his body disappeared in place. When it reappears, has come beyond the far-flung birds. During this time, many practitioners in Dajin Lingyu came to Yuanyu Bird to trade with Yusheng Feng Yanyan. Feng Yanyan never refuses anyone. Even if it's just a few tens of Lingcoin business, it seems quite free and easy. In the past 10 years, Dajang various projects, salaries of officials and soldiers, some commercial transactions and so on. They all began to be gradually replaced by spirit coins. It's just that spirit coins are consumables after all. There is still a long way to go to completely replace it. Certainly, it is also impossible to completely replace. Spirit coins are worth a lot. Many things still need silver and gold to buy. However, the function of exchanging various heavenly and mortal treasures for spirit coins has been opened in the Dao Child Chamber of Commerce. So Dajin folk, there are still a lot of spirit coins. Especially some big forces will store spirit coins. At this time, the wandering bird arrives. They will naturally also buy a batch. Some of the big forces in the Cold Moon Dynasty in the past even had more than 10 million spirit coins in their hands. If it weren't for the best batch of treasures being bought by Li Yu, these big forces will definitely be able to buy a lot. Li Yu stepped onto the back of Yuanyu Bird. A strange bridge of light suddenly extended from a distance and stopped in front of him. He didn't hesitate. Step up. The bridge of light flashed. Has disappeared in place. When it reappears, Li Yu has come to the third floor of the attic. With a glance, he hugged the cupped fist towards Feng Yannian, who was looking unrestrained in front of him. Treasurer Feng. Ha ha, I didn't expect my friend to come so soon. But you want to buy Fengmu's collection of treasures. Feng Yannian smiled. He has a slender body, and although his long hair is only casually draped, he also has an extremely extraordinary temperament. Li Yu guessed. This wind shopkeeper. 78 out of 10 is a divine transformation venerable. It's up to shopkeeper Feng to give up his love. Li Yu also smiled. The other party only sold 1 billion spirit coins, which is indeed a cut-off. He also received the love from the other party. Waiting for the future. Own time to repay. It's just for business. Feng Yannian didn't care. He took Li Yu into the abdominal space of the distant bird again. The jeweling treasure tree was still suspended in the air, and the five-color divine light shone, turning the entire space into a glazed heaven. Although it is not the first time I have seen this precious tree. But Li Yu was still a little surprised. The ability of this jeweling treasure tree is too strong. This is not a treasure tree for raising a single person. It is a treasure tree that can improve a domain. Planting this spirit-gathering treasure tree in the center of Dajin spiritual realm will benefit the entire Dajin spiritual realm. Amazing results in a short time. Not to mention, 10 years later, 20 years later. That was simply a sea change. In Dajin Lingyu, there will definitely be a large number of Purple Mansion true monarchs and kings of the Three Souls realm. He has reached the ranks of officials and various legions. All have to increase their strength. Even with the Divine Palace Great Master as a soldier, it is not impossible. It took me a lot of effort to get this jeweling treasure tree. The effect on a dynasty is absolutely astonishing. Feng Yannian smiled. Li Yu nodded. He directly handed a storage ring to Feng Yannian. Inside is 1 billion spiritual coins. Feng Yannian took it. Didn't check either, just pointing to jeweling bow tree. It's from a friend. After speaking, he took out the calabash from his waist, raised his head and took a sip. Li Yu is not polite either. He directly took the jeweling treasure tree, and after talking with Feng Yannian for a few words, he left Yuanyunyao. Back to Yangdu. His face was full of anticipation. He chose a forbidden area in the royal palace and planted this jeweling treasure tree. Immediately, the entire Dajin spiritual realm seemed to shake slightly. Outside the Dajin spiritual realm, among the wild mountains, the ubiquitous spirit power suddenly stopped. Then it seemed to be drawn, and rushed towards the Dajin spiritual realm. Spirit power became a trend. Turbulent and surging. Just for a moment, practitioners in the entire Dajin spiritual realm opened their eyes, feeling the astonishing changes around them in astonishment. Spirit power concentration. Another sharp increase. Especially Wangcheng Yangdu. The closer to the area where the palace is located, the more terrifying the concentration of spirit power will be. After half a day, the surge of spirit power gradually subsided. Only jeweling treasure tree is the center. Within a radius of 1 mile, the concentration of spirit power reached 6 times the original. Within a radius of 10 miles, it has reached 4 times the original size. The radius of 100 miles has reached 3 times that of the original. The radius is thousands of miles, reaching twice the original size. And the entire Great Spirit Realm. The concentration of spirit power has reached 1.5 times of the original. Li Yu stood not far from the jeweling treasure tree. The dense 0.4 spirit power has already formed a mist, floating around. It looks like an immortal realm, extremely ethereal. And under the jeweling treasure tree, a small pool is also gradually taking shape. Drop after drop of Xuanming ice dew fell, pure to the extreme. Li Daosu, Li Daoyan and others rushed over. They stared dumbfounded at the terrifyingly rich spirit power in this forbidden area, and gasped. This spirit power is too rich. Originally, there is a large array of spirit gathering in the palace. Spirit power is extremely concentrated. And now, on this basis, it has increased by 5 times. How amazing is this? Being in it is like running in the spirit power spa. The whole body is covered by the extremely rich spirit power. Here east, in less than a month, you will be able to step into the 2nd floor of the 7 soul realm. Li Daoyan's eyes sparkled, and she spoke softly. 91%. Chapter 272 Shake all parties, strengthen the ancestor witch. Spirit power all rushing in one direction. This is a peerless treasure. It is not far from Dajin Lingyu. The exquisite flying boat was flying across the sky, and Yi Qingtian and Yi Zongxuan, two venerables of the Night Demon clan, suddenly stood up. Surprising rays of light erupted from their pupils, and their faces were full of ecstasy. Their bodies trembled slightly. This kind of treasure can attract infinite spirit power and go in one direction. They were all only heard of in legends. Never seen it yet. But now, such a peerless treasure suddenly appeared in front of them. The two looked at each other. You can see the excitement in each other's eyes. That treasure is not far away from them. And it is extremely far away from Dayu. Other divine transformation venerables are definitely impossible to rush over. That is to say, this peerless treasure is already in their pocket. Ha ha ha. This is the blessing of the 21 ancestor gods. My Night Demon clan suffered a great calamity 10,000 years ago, and this time I have condensed great luck, and I am destined to rise. Yi Qingtian said excitedly. Boom. At this moment, he didn't even care whether the flying boat under his feet would be damaged. A huge influx of magic power. The speed of the flying boat skyrocketed by nearly half again. It turned into a purple divine light and disappeared into the sky in a flash. Spirit power is surging, headed for Tianjunling Yu. This is the birth of a treasure. Unfortunately, that is the great spirit realm. The members of my Flame Demon clan here are far from being able to match. But this news must be reported to the ancestral land immediately. Below the third stage spiritual domain. In one of the mortal realms, inside the purple mountain. A foreigner with a red body and dense scales all over his body opened his eyes and looked in the direction of Dajin. Under the 100 Flowers spiritual realm. ZKE. Under the ancient spiritual domain of the town. Under Tiananling Yu. The Juling treasure tree caused too many waves. It fully attracted the spirit power with a radius of nearly 5 million miles centered on Dajinling Yu. All the aliens were shocked. Even some strong men who came from the great domain and lived in seclusion in the mortal domain or the spiritual domain also looked over. Among these strong, there is a senior who retreats to the mountains and forests. There are also intelligence personnel, disciples, and so on of some forces in Dayu. A treasure is born. Quick, send the message back to the door. That direction is the Dajin spiritual realm. There is a treasure born in the Dajin spirit realm. This moment, I don't know how many people who couldn't hide before became excited. At this time, in the great spiritual realm, although Li Yu didn't know about the appearance of the Juling treasure tree, it shocked a lot of strong people. But he can also guess a few points. After all, it is necessary to increase the spirit power concentration of the entire spiritual domain by 50%. That requires spirit power to toe, which is definitely too vast. All other major spiritual domains will be slightly affected. And the wild and desolate mountains without the rules of the spiritual domain, the impact is even more astonishing. Regardless of whether it is a practitioner or a cultivator. They are definitely extremely sensitive to changes in spirit power. But he didn't take it too seriously. With his current strength, fully capable of owning such a treasure. What about divine transformation venerable? Anyone who dares to step into the spiritual domain, he will kill them all. If he dare not step into the spiritual domain, with his current strength of the Dajin dynasty. Not afraid of the opponent's attack from outside, all of them can be blocked. He also hopes to come to a few divine transformation venerables at this time. He has an amazing plan in mind. It takes a few divine transformation venerables to enter the arena, and then bury them all. Call people back, all closed door training practice. He looked at his elder son Li Daosu and his daughter Li Daoyan and ordered them. There are such wonderful places. Naturally, there is closed-door training once to improve the cultivation base. Only the cultivation base of everyone in the family has been improved. His strength can be improved simultaneously. Yes. Li Daosu nodded, and immediately went to make arrangements. The north and west of the royal capital can be divided into military camps, elite training camps, and the 4 major legions. There can be an area. Li Yu instructed Li Daoyan again. The royal palace is just to the north of the royal capital. Go further north. It is outside the capital. The Juling treasure tree has a radius of 10 miles, which is basically the range of the palace. And within a radius of 100 miles. It covers the entire capital and a large area outside the capital. He handed over the rest to the folks. Only the north, west, requires dynasty mastery. With these 2 areas, it's more or less enough. Within 100 miles, the concentration of spirit power is tripled. Within 1,000 miles, the concentration of spirit power is doubled. If it is deployed again in the spirit gathering formation, the spirit power concentration will have an astonishing increase. Yes, Li Daoyan nodded, and then went to make arrangements. Looking at Li Dayan's back, Li Yu's heart suddenly moved, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. In his mind, another method of manipulation by the 12 golden men emerged. This time, Dajin conquered the Dali dynasty and the Jingxiu dynasty. It also coerced Zhenggu Lingyu, Baihua Lingyu, and Tianan Lingyu. Although most of them have not yet surrendered. 797. But there are also many who surrendered. Let his great luck also skyrocket. The luck has reached 12,000 points. The cultivation base of the 12 golden men has reached the level of the king of 6 transformations. The golden man who emerged this time. It's Qiangliang, the ancestral witch of thunder. He was delighted. Call, with a thought. Immediately, a figure in a purple robe with an expressionless face and eyes that seemed to be flickering with thunder appeared in front of him. This figure, with a snake in its mouth and a snake in its hand, it has a tiger head and a human body, 4 hoofed feet, and long elbows. Even just standing there, there is also a terrifying arrogance. The thunder snake held in his hand was completely condensed from thunder. Chang Liang, worship Zheng. The Qiangliang golden man saluted Li Yu. His voice was as if thunder was exploding, shaking people's hearts. Free gift. Li Yu spoke. He is extremely satisfied with the 12 golden men. This is the exotic treasure of High World. And it is the most precious and rare humanoid exotic treasure. 12 gold people are terrible. At this time, although it is only realm of the king of 6 changes. But with all his might. But all of them have stepped into the nascent soul realm. Once the formation is formed, even the divine transformation venerable will step into the spiritual domain. Also be killed. 91%. Chapter 273. The cultivation base has been continuously improved, and the strength has skyrocketed. Soon, Li Daosu, Li Daoyan, Li Daolong, Li Zimo, Li Zixing and others all came. Even Li Zihan, and the 4th generation of the family, a few little guys who have reached the age of 10. They all came in the same way. Refined by the talent of the Lake of Refined. They are all little geniuses. At this time, the lotus position is sitting in this place where the spirit power is extremely strong. The speed of each practice began to become astonishing. Although the difficulty of practicing the Taizan Heavenly God chapter is more than 100 times that of the normal cultivation technique. But at this time everyone's practice speed. It is still more than 100 times that of a normal practitioner. All the time, everyone's cultivation base has changed. Li Yu stood aside and watched quietly. He flipped his right hand. Take out the jade bottles one by one. What is contained in it is the chalcedony pill for Yuanwu Tianjin's practice. Every chalcedony pill is extremely precious. It is necessary to collect jade essence, 10,000-year ground milk, azure spiritual fruit, and hundreds of other precious minerals and spiritual plants. Only one can be refined. For Yuanwu Tianjin, this is also an extremely precious thing to improve the cultivation base. 2 waves of Tianjin level exist. The history is not simple. However, the chalcedony pills obtained from these people's storage bags are only 12. This chalcedony pill, put it in the big domain. Any one is worth more than 5 million spirit coins. The Yuanwu Tianjin of the big forces can only eat one when they want to break through the small realm. Dao Su and the others are eating the king level, 9 changes pill, now, but it doesn't have much effect. After all, their strength is close to Yuanwu realm. Li Yu whispered in her heart. He snapped his fingers lightly. Immediately, 3 chalcedony pills flew out of his hand. It was wiped out by a huge force in the air, and turned into extremely pure medicinal power. Directly enveloped the 7 members of the 2nd and 3rd generations, including Li Daosu, Li Daolong, Li Daoyan, and Li Zimo. They took a chalcedony pill alone, the medicinal power was too strong. So, it is just right for 7 people to share 3 chalcedony pills. Boom! The medicinal power enveloped the 7 people. Immediately, the 7 of them seemed to be covered with a layer of magnificent shai. The surrounding spirit power seems to have gone crazy, frantically rushing toward the 7 people. An hour passed like this. Li Daoyan opened her eyes suddenly, and a god came out from behind her. This deity is surrounded by invisible qi. Gas, gas, gas. The demon god roared 3 times before turning into a streamer and rushing into Li Daoyan's body. Condensed again in Li Daoyan Dantian's mansion of the gods, the high seat of God. Immediately, Li Daoyan's breath rose sharply. Cultivation base has been upgraded from the first floor of the Seven Souls realm to the second floor of the Seven Souls realm. And Li Yu herself received feedback. Also condensed the atmospheric demon god, the cultivation base was upgraded to the second floor of the Seven Soul realm. And in the next 2 hours, Li Daosu, Li Daolong and 6 others, even Li Zihan, who is the hippest, is under the care of Li Yu. Also condensed the atmospheric demon god, and the cultivation base was promoted to the second floor of the Seven Soul realm. With the promotion of all. In Li Yu's body, there are many gods' mansions. There is also an extra air demon god. The demon god sits on the divine seat, as towering as the sky and as powerful as a mountain. Plus the Hercules next to him. A total of 14 demon gods gathered in his body. The terrifying power surged to the extreme. The astonishing, Taizan heavenly god chapter True Chi, swept across, and the golden brilliance was like an ocean, mighty and mighty. The power of 3.5 mountains. Nowadays, my basic attack power has reached nearly 9 mountains. In addition to the saber technique of the Yuanwu level King Grade Death 3 styles. The attack has increased by 18.5 times. Go down with a knife, almost to the west of 16,000 mountains. If you use supernatural power and the power of God. A smile appeared on the corner of Li Yu's mouth. With the blessing of these 2 supernatural powers, his attack power can reach 27 times. One knife down. It is the strength of 230 mountains. No nascent soul Tianjin or Yuanwu Tianjin can stop it. Even if it is the peak of nascent soul Tianjin with an ordinary divine body. He will also be beheaded by a knife. But soon. He restrained his smile. Such a strength. In front of the divine transformation venerable, it is still vulnerable. After all, the weakest divine transformation venerable. With a full blow, there can be more than 1,500 mountain calendars. We will continue to improve. His eyes flashed. Without hesitation. This time, 4 chalcedony pills were taken out and wiped out, turning into surging medicinal power and falling towards Li Daosu and others. In all directions, a large amount of spirit power surged again. The 7 people are also running the Taizan Tian Shengxian Zhang frantically. There is nothing like this cultivation technique. Even with such a powerful medicinal power, it still does not reject anyone who comes. Even Li Yu felt a longing from the Taizan Tian Shengxian Zhang. Longing for more medicinal sensations. Rumble. A storm of spirit power was set off in the entire Yangdu royal city. Blockbusters of spirit power poured in from all around. He was crazily drawn to the depths of the palace. Everyone looked at the huge funnel above the palace in horror. Originally invisible and colorless spirit power. At this moment, they are all rendered colorful and extremely gorgeous. Half of the sky is covered by the spirit power funnel, shining brightly. Time goes by bit. Half a day passed. Li Deyin is still the fastest. Behind her was another figure of a demon god condensed out. The monstrous energy soared into the sky, forming a giant pillar of smoke. The Taizan natural divine seal True Chi in her body skyrocketed crazily. The power contained in it has also skyrocketed crazily. Boom. The demon god raised his head to the sky and roared a few times. It turned into a ray of light and poured into her body. Immediately, her aura is rising rapidly. The Taizan natural divine seal True Chi in the body skyrocketed crazily. The power contained in it has also skyrocketed crazily. He opened his eyes. An astonishing saber energy rushed out, cutting a bottomless crack in the ground. With the 3rd level of the 7 soul realm at this time, she has condensed the strength of the soul demon god. Is it okay? It has completely surpassed the ordinary Yuanwu Tianjin level. The basic attack power close to the power of 2 mountains. Almost 12 times the attack increase. One strike down, the power is not weaker than the west of 2,000 mountains. Ordinary nascent soul 1st stage Tianjin can't reach this level. Nascent soul 2nd stage Tianjin also has the most levels. Such strength, absolutely invincible in the spiritual realm. Even if the Emperor of Nascent Soul 9th stage descends, it can't be stronger. Only the divine transformation venerable comes to the spirit realm. Only then can it be suppressed. Promoted to beggar. Li Yu's face was full of joy. He also condensed the soul demon in his body, and his cultivation base was raised to the 3rd level of the 7 soul realm. Just as he continued to wait for Li Daosu and others to be promoted. Suddenly felt, in Dajin West, there is an extremely terrifying aura approaching land madly. Divine transformation venerable. He turned around abruptly and looked to the west, his eyes shining brightly. 92%. Chapter 274. Divine Transformation. Venerable enters Great Mastery. This is the Great Spirit Realm. That treasure is actually in the Dajin spiritual realm. Flying boat across the sky. Yi Qingtian, dressed in a gorgeous purple robe, raised her eyebrows in surprise. Looks like you're right. The Lord of the spiritual realm actually has such luck to be able to obtain such a treasure. If you don't kill it as soon as possible, I'm afraid it may really become a future trouble. The night demon divine power venerable next to him spoke out, with a serious look on his face. But in the blink of an eye there was a smile on his face again. Immediately, this treasure is about to become theirs. Thinking about it, I still feel a little excited. Follow plan 2. It has to be fast. The divine transformation venerables of other races and major forces will probably come over. We must take this treasure in front of them. Yi Qingtian took a breath, and said with a grim expression. Yi Zongxuan nodded. Originally, before they come, they have already devised 2 plans to deal with the master of the spiritual realm. The first plan, it is outside the spiritual domain. With the terrifying strength of their divine transformation venerable, they destroyed the entire spiritual realm. Like that, naturally, the suppression of the spiritual domain will not be broken by 707. But this plan, it takes a lot of time. After all, the spiritual domain is a spiritual domain. Even if they are the terrifying existence of venerable realm, but want to destroy a spiritual domain, under the interference of the rules of the spiritual domain, it is not easy. And the second plan, that is to directly enter the spiritual domain and kill the master of the spiritual domain. To this end, they fly in the boat. They also brought a lot of people from Nascent Soul Realm and Yuanwu Realm. With many clansmen from Nascent Soul and Yuanwu Realm, they cooperated with the 2 of them to besiege and kill together. Within the spiritual realm, no matter how powerful the convenience is, if you think about it, you will be surrounded and killed. It's just that Yi Qingtian has always been worried. So their priority plan is the first plan. But now Dajin Lingyu produced such a peerless treasure. In order to prevent long nights and dreams, it is natural to make a quick decision. Boom! The flying boat roared like a thunderbolt across the sky. Divine transformation venerable. Finally it's here. Li Yu's complexion became serious. He guessed. There is a high probability that this is CBDI, the divine transformation venerable of the night demons. Even if the divine transformation venerable of Bailing Dayu Takong Road had to come, it would not be so fast. After all, he was the only one who beheaded those Yuanwu Tianjins on Takongdao. He glanced at the children who practiced in lotus position and were shrouded in strong medicinal power. He didn't bother. One step out, has disappeared in place. And at the same time, there was a thought in his mind. An order has been passed on to 7 of the 12 golden men, including Di Zhang. Let them form a large formation, covering the spiritual domain of the large formation, and block all attacks that the divine transformation venerable may bombard from outside. Divine transformation venerable is scary. One's own strength is at least the strength of 1,500 mountains. The power of 1,500 mountains. That's 75 million tons. Booming far beyond the speed of sound. The little planet will be smashed directly. Scary to the extreme. However, the spiritual domain has its own laws of the spiritual domain. Any attack from outside will be weakened a lot. The cultivation base of realm, the 6th change king of the 12 golden men at this time, is comparable to the strength of nascent soul Tianjin. After condensing into a large formation, it is completely able to withstand it. No worries. Naturally, he can deal with the divine transformation venerable with confidence. But soon, he paused for a moment, with a look of astonishment on his face. But then came, it is deep joy, he didn't expect. The divine transformation venerable didn't intend to smash the Dajin spiritual realm directly outside the Dieling city. Instead, come in, enter the great spirit realm. According to the logic, last time I had already shown my terrifying strength. How dare you come in? He looked strange. At the same time, be vigilant. When something goes wrong, there must be a demon. The surrounding scene changes. When it reappears, he has come to the western border of Dajin Lingyu. In the borderlands, there are no cities and no people. This is the possible battleground that Li Yu had envisioned a long time ago. Far away, he has already seen an extremely exquisite and breathtaking flying boat coming across the sky. The speed is fast, almost 100 times the speed of sound. A wink. It is 60 or 70 miles. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 miles have passed. It was like thunder and lightning, so fast that it was unimaginable. Li Yu stretched out her hand. Immediately, a huge fist print appeared in the air and blasted towards the flying boat. The fist print is like a mountain, and the purple air is shining. In the air, it turned into a huge mountain of hundreds of feet, lifelike. The mountain peak roared, with monstrous momentum. Snort. A cold snort came from the flying boat. The same fist print flew out. This fist seal is like the purple moon in the sky, cold and sharp, hitting the mountain peak fiercely. Bang! Amazing loud vibrations. In an area with a radius of hundreds of miles, all the trees and boulders jumped up and then collapsed. Even the mountain peaks are trembling, cracks are everywhere, and the mountains are beginning to collapse. The huge purple mountain and the purple moon exploded at the same time. And the flying boat also stopped. Two figures stood on the edge of the flying boat with their hands behind their backs, coldly looking down at Li Yu. Especially Yi Qingtian, a pair of eyes full of murderous intent, cold and terrifying. There is also a terrifying amount of mental energy twisting around. It seems to completely distort the whole world and change the world. Human race, this seed is here in person today, you have no other choice but death. Yi Qingtian spoke. He has flying purple hair, and his eyes are captivating. The body is straight, and one after another purple streamer slowly emerges from the whole body, which is extremely terrifying. Every streamer. They are all tiny purple stone spears, cold and sharp, as if they can penetrate the world. And above his head, there was even a purple bead full of destructive power suspended in the air, and thunderbolts flashed densely. I really didn't expect. You actually entered the spiritual domain yourself. This kind of behavior seems to me. Li Yu grinned and showed a smile. Just looking for death. Court death. Human race. You are very confident. But you never know, Venerable's strength cannot be provoked by ants like you. Yi Zongxuan opened his mouth, his eyes were sharp, and a cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. That Ziyu-like punch before was made by him. As his voice fell. Immediately, streaks of purple light rushed down from the flying boat. 92%. Chapter 275. 12 Capitals Gods and Demons Formation. In every purple light. They are all strong night demons. The divine feather spread out behind it, and the purple light was shining brightly, sweeping across hundreds of miles in an instant like a horse training. A total of 18 nascent soul heavenly lords and 18 Yuanwu heavenly lords. The terrifying momentum soared to the sky. Like giant pillars of wolf smoke, all the clouds in the sky burst into pieces. The surrounding mountain peaks that have not collapsed can no longer bear it. Under the suppression of these terrifying breaths, they all let out a tragic roar and collapsed in an instant. The rocks rolled down, and the smoke and dust rose into the sky. 36 strong night demons surrounded Li Yu. Although this is a spiritual domain, there are rules in the spiritual realm to suppress it. These 36 nascent soul, Yuanwu Tianjin, all can only display the cultivation base that is the limit of the King of Nine Changes. However, several of them have reached nascent soul 7th stage and Yuanwu 7th stage or above. Even if cultivation base is the limit of the King of Nine Changes. But the strength is not weaker than the existence of nascent soul Tianjin 1st stage. And not only that, these 36 Night Demon clan powerhouses also condensed into an astonishing large formation. The purple light in the formation was brilliant, like a round of purple sun falling on the ground. Among Ziyang, Li Yu also felt a little restrained. This made him have to sigh. It is worthy of being a Night Demon tribe with many divine transformation venerables and divine power venerables. This background is amazing. The level of this formation is very high. He suspects it may be refined on the path of divine transformation venerable, going far away. The array is hanging high. The purple divine light is overwhelming. Even the surrounding purple air began to condense together, forming thousands of purple long swords, pointing at him from a distance. And at the same time, Yi Qingtian and Yi Zongxuan, the two divine transformation venerables and divine power venerables, also got off the airship. Boom! The aura of the two of them was unreserved. The terrifying momentum soared into the sky, making the entire Tianjin garden seem to be shaken. Even if it's extremely far apart. In Wangcheng Yangdu, a strong man's complexion changed drastically, and he looked over in horror. Even Li Daoyan, who had woken up from her training, frowned. But she didn't rush to help. Instead, he waved gently. The true energy in the body surged, blocking the aura coming from the outside. Don't let this aura affect the practice of Li Deosu and others. Distant birds lie on the ground. Feng Yannian held the wine calabash and took a few sips with his head lifted. The wine flowed down the chin and into the open chest, showing boldness and chic. He also looked west. 1 divine transformation venerable, 1 divine power venerable, 36 nascent soul, Yuan Wu Tianjin. I don't know how my friend will respond. He whispered to himself, with great interest. Although he doesn't know how strong Li Yu is. But look at it with their unique supernatural power, God's eye. He could see. This friend is not easy. Many places. Even the gods can't see through it. That's why he took out the top treasures in his hand. Even treasures such as the Juling treasure tree were taken out. Because of walking the world for so many years. This is the first time he has seen a creature that cannot see through so many places. Yi Qingtian and Yi Zongxuan strided forward. The terrifying atmosphere is about to suppress the whole world. Human race, when you cut off my spiritual clone, did you ever think about the consequences of the deity's presence? Yi Qingtian said indifferently. He stands in the air, high above. It's like a god looking down on the ants. And actually, as a divine transformation venerable, he is indeed a god. The word divine transformation. It is the meaning of turning into a god. He has thousands of parts. In many mortal realms and spiritual realms, beliefs are established. More than tens of billions of believers enshrine him. All the time, he kept praying to him, providing him with huge incense and phoenix power. In the hearts of believers, he is supreme, the respect of the gods. How can mortals be presumptuous? Only you have help. I don't have it. Li Yu chuckled. As his voice fell, immediately, a huge red figure with a dragon and a snake came from the south. An extremely sharp figure came from the west. From the north came the monstrous figure of the vast sea. From the east came the figures of giant trees. From under the earth, a figure who seems to be in charge of the earth stepped out. Asking for flowers. 0. And thunder came again. The space was also torn open, and a Taoist figure walked out. 7 Taoist shadows appear. The momentum is monstrous, the fury is extreme. The momentum revealed by each figure is not weaker than nascent soul Tianjin. Among the 36 members of the Night Demon clan, the strongest ones are not weak at all, and even a little bit stronger. For a moment, the pupils of the 36 Night Demon clan heavenly sovereigns shrank and their complexions changed. Boom! The breath of 5 elements flickered. Haotu, Gonggong, Zhurong, Juming, and Rusho are the 5 golden men. Directly condense a 5 elements formation. Then Dizhong and Qiangliang stepped into it and blended in. The aura changed drastically, and the billowing killing intent rushed out from under the ground, extremely terrifying. 12 golden men can form the ultimate formation, 12 capitals of gods and demons. At this time, Dizhong and Chang Liang joined in. The 5 elements formation has also begun to transform into the 12 capitals Tenshensha formation. The terrifying killing intent soared to the sky. Ho 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 ho. Between heaven and earth, it seems that there is a terrifying existence roaring, shaking the world. Surrounded by turmoil, the ground trembled underfoot. Everything is distorted. What a horrible breath. Yi Qingtian and Yi Zongxuan's pupils contracted, and their hearts trembled. This big formation, it gave them both a sense of creepiness. As if falling into it. With the cultivation base, where they were suppressed by the spiritual realm to the limit of the 9 change kings, they may all be suppressed and killed. But how is this possible? Both of them couldn't believe it. What are they? Divine transformation venerable. Divine power venerable. In the world, is the real God. High above, overlooking the gods of heaven and earth. How could it be possible to be killed by a mere big formation town? Although this is the spiritual domain. But their knowledge, their supernatural power and martial arts, how can King Realm and Nascent Soul Realm compare? It is also the cultivation base of the 9 changes king limit. They have 1 finger. It can crush and kill hundreds of ordinary 9 change kings. The two are not on the same level at all. But now, they feel threatened. Terrible threats. N. 92%. Chapter 276 7-Color Divine Light, Divine Transformation Hair. Boom. The 7-color divine light surged up. The divine light swept across, like an ocean surging. The sea waves roared, as if they were about to shatter the world and tear apart the universe. Bang bang bang. There is not much resistance at all. The 36 nascent soul heavenly lords and Yuanwu heavenly lords of the night demon race were directly bombarded by the 7-color divine light, and they all vomited blood and flew backwards. Their condensed terrifying formation, also like paper paste. In front of the seven-color divine light, it was vulnerable and instantly shattered. What a terrifying formation. Yi Qingtian's pupils shrank tightly, feeling a little creepy. Too strong. This is the spiritual realm. 36 nascent soul heavenly lords and Yuanwu heavenly lords condensed into a stunning formation. This is so powerful. It is almost invincible in the spiritual realm. After all, the highest in the spiritual domain is the cultivation base of the 9-change king limit. 657. 36 nascent soul heavenly lords and Yuanwu heavenly lords are all at this level in the spiritual domain. But they were swept aside casually, and they were all severely injured. Shoot! Yi Zongxuan was stunned for a moment, then shouted angrily. He is blonde. The eyes are cast like gold, and the golden radiance of sacred rushes out. The handsome face is full of dignity. At some point in his hand, a golden ancient spear entwined with endless brilliance appeared. The ancient spear moved. Immediately, billions of spear lights descended from the sky. With the aura of smashing everything, they pierced towards Li Yu and the 7 Haotu people fiercely. Boom! The void is trembling violently. As if to be torn directly. No, some places, cracks the size of a hair have been torn apart. Just like a broken mirror, inconspicuous cracks appeared one after another. As if the whole world, it will shatter at any time and turn into powder. The hundreds of millions of spears have not fallen yet. Centered on Li Yu et al. The land with a radius of thousands of miles suddenly sank and was completely pierced through. The smoke and dust soared into the sky, and there was nothing to stop it. What boulders, what mountains, what trees. They were all like tofu. They all burst into pieces and turned into dust and scattered crazily. Kill. Yi Qingtian also shot at the same time. His eyes were shining with purple light, like 2 rounds of purple sun flying across the sky. The cold and terrifying momentum soared into the sky, tearing 9 heavens apart. Thunderbolts as thick as mountains rushed out of the purple beads above his head that were full of destructive aura. The thunderbolt was deep purple, full of destructive power, and roared terrifyingly, blasting towards Li Yu and the others. And the little purple spear floating beside him also flickered slightly. It has already turned into a purple divine light piercing the sky, piercing towards Li Yu. The two work together seamlessly. Even if it is a divine transformation venerable at the same level as them. They all have confidence. Facing such a terrifying attack, he would be directly and severely injured. The two of them, although they are all just divine transformation, divine power venerable early stage. But their night demons are extremely strong, and their talent is not bad. Compared with the human race's divine transformation and divine power early stage, it is somewhat stronger. They were once on the battlefield of hundreds of clans. Work together to kill a divine transformation venerable of a human race. So even if Haotu and the others' large formation showed extremely terrifying power, they were just shocked, but they didn't have any fear. As expected of divine transformation venerable, divine power venerable. This combined blow is not weaker than the power of the nascent soul 5th stage Tianjin outside the spiritual realm. Li Yu was a little surprised. Divine transformation venerable is divine transformation venerable. Even in the spiritual domain, it can also display the power of nascent soul 5th stage. Such strength. How many 9 variable kings have to fill the limit before they can be killed? Or, how many nascent soul Tianjin and Yuanwu Tianjin will enter the spiritual realm to fill? Boom. The 7-color divine light surged upwards overwhelmingly. There are blazing and monstrous flames. There are currents of water that corrode everything. There are mountains as heavy as billions of Jun. There is Sen Lang's myriad Excalibur. There are endless stunning vines. There are more terrifying thunders and invisible space blades. 7 different, but all extremely terrifying forces gathered together. And unimaginable endless turbidity rushed out and merged into one. The horror of the 7-color divine light has reached an unbelievable level. Not weaker than the divine transformation venerable that came to the spiritual realm. Even, much more powerful than divine transformation venerable. Bang! The shocking collision shook thousands of miles around. The entire Dajin spiritual realm vibrated slightly, making the great emperor practitioner and cultivator horrified and shocked. The terrifying power set off a gust of wind and swept across the entire spiritual realm. Thunder flashes, wind howls. In a scene of the end of the world, I don't know how many people in Dajin turned pale and trembled. Even some kings, true monarchs, have pale faces and trembling lips. What an amazing formation. Is this a humanoid exotic treasure at the exotic treasure level of the higher world? What an unimaginable treasure. Traveling birds across the sky. Feng Yannian stood on it, his eyes sparkled, and his face showed a bit of shock. As a traveling merchant, he is well informed. Can a humanoid exotic treasure of the higher world exotic treasure level? He has never seen it. This exotic treasure, too precious, far beyond imagination, compared to the jeweling treasure tree he sold. How much more precious it is. Boom. Yi Qingtian and Yi Zongxuan's bodies shook, their faces turned pale, and they were sent flying straight away. The bodies of the two trembled, their internal organs shifted, their bodies were torn apart, and blood spilled out. Just one hit. Both of them were injured. The two looked at each other. You can see the shock and horror in each other's eyes. Every hair stood on end. Too horrible. In their strength. They are not opponents. As divine transformation venerable, divine power venerable. Both of them felt a little disbelief. But it is true. Go all out. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qingtian's face was full of 0.0 dignity. He has flying purple hair, bleeding from the corner of his mouth, and scars all over Jian's body. A pair of purple divine feathers stretched across the sky on the back. The purple light was shining brightly, and there were also several holes all over the place at this time. Yi Zongxuan nodded slightly, staring at the terrifying seven-color formation below. His complexion was cold, ugly, and even more murderous. He was actually wounded in this spiritual realm. Don't be angry. I'm going to kill you all. He growled and burst into anger. A monstrous golden radiance erupted from his whole body, like a scorching sun. Faintly, something seemed to be activated inside him. Immediately, an astonishing divine flame surged from his body. Shenyan swept across, golden light shining brightly. Repression of the spiritual realm. It's all been opened up. The aura on his body began to grow endlessly. 93%. Chapter 277 Li Yu's strongest whole card. The same method as the Yuanwu Tianjin in Ta Kongdao. Li Yu narrowed her eyes. At the beginning, the Tianjin of Yuanwu 8th stage on Ta Kongdao broke some of the suppression of the spiritual realm. Directly display the strength of Yuanwu 4th stage. Absolutely stunning. In the spiritual domain, the strength of Yuanwu 4th stage is displayed. This is completely comparable to the strength of divine transformation venerable in the spiritual realm. Before, he feels that divine transformation venerable generally does not enter the spiritual realm. It is because he is worried about being besieged and killed by 9 changes King Limit or Nascent Soul Tianjin and Yuanwu Tianjin. And after that, he just guessed. I'm afraid divine transformation venerable, the most worrying thing is encountering an existence that can break the limit of the spiritual realm. At that time, he was thinking, if the divine transformation venerable can also break the limit of the spiritual realm, it will be troublesome. Take the horror of the divine transformation venerable. Even if it's just breaking the limit a bit, it is definitely capable of displaying shocking strength. Even if it is a young great emperor, I am afraid that standing in the spiritual realm, the battle will be quite difficult. And now, this speculation has become a fact. The two venerables of the night demon race in front of us also have this amazing method. Boom. Shen Yan was talking like a golden blazing sun. Endless flames swept across, suspending the night battle. They all turned into a huge ball of flames with a radius of hundreds of miles. The golden divine fire licks everything, destroying everything. Standing in the golden god fire giant ball. At this moment, Yi Zongxuan really has the power of a god, the image of a god. A terrifying aura swept across the sky. The sky is roaring. The entire Dajin spiritual realm was trembling slightly. A large number of creatures in the spiritual domain all felt heavy in their hearts, as if they were pressing down on a boulder. Make them almost out of breath. Even some kings, true monarch, they are more sensitive. Under this terrifying momentum, all of them were covered in cold sweat, almost unable to stand still. All of them were pale, and their eyes were full of horror. Too strong, separated by a long distance. It makes them so uncomfortable. If you come to the front, I'm afraid that if they just take a look at it, they won't be able to bear it, and they will just kneel on the ground. Human race, you completely pissed me off. Even if this drop of primordial blood is extremely precious, I will kill you. Yi Zongxuan's blonde hair was flying, his eyes were shining, and his divine power was sweeping, mighty as the sky. He looked down at Li Yu coldly, his eyes full of murderous intent. Original blood. Li Yu frowned. What is this again? The other party was able to break the suppression of the spiritual realm to a certain extent, because of the original blood. And at the same time, a monstrous aura suddenly erupted from Yi Qingtian's body. The suppression of the spiritual realm. Also broken by him a bit. The breath of the whole body rises endlessly. The purple divine flames were ignited all over her body, and the divine flames were surging, burning everything. Purple radiance swept across the sky for hundreds of miles. But in an instant, another round of scorching purple sun appeared in the sky again, and the terrifying power of the gods was overwhelming, covering the universe. Yi Qingtian's purple hair fluttered like a purple demon standing in the sky. The breath is terrible. That divine light was too intense. The real scorching sun on the sky became dim. One left and one right. 2 rounds of scorching sun shrouded Li Yu, Hu Tu and others in the center. The terrifying divine power froze all the surrounding space. Even the authority of the master of the spiritual realm can't teleport away either. The space is like an iron plate. In this kind of environment, even with the strength of the nascent soul 9th stage, it still has to change color and it is difficult to move. Fine, it has not recovered to the strength of the God transformation realm world. Li Yu whispered. At this time, the 2 venerables of the night goblins. The strength should be higher than nascent soul 9th stage. Although extremely strong, but compared to the mighty force in the God transformation realm world, it is still far behind. Semicolon. Snort. Send you on your way. Yi Qingtian sneered. His purple hair was flying, and the bead full of destructive force on the top of his head exploded again. The thunderbolt as thick as a mountain fell with a roar. The purple is extremely deep, full of destructive power. This time, power compared to before, it's more than 3 or 5 times more terrifying. Even one who can display the strength of nascent soul at its peak can't stop it. This is the power of divine transformation venerable. Although it only broke a bit of spiritual domain suppression, but also unimaginably terrifying. The young great emperor is here. Frown. The 7-color divine light rushed up. But it was just a collision, and it was smashed to pieces. Hu Tu and others staggered and flew out, unable to resist at all. Li Yu was the only one left. His complexion is also quite dignified. The opponent broke through a few points of spiritual domain suppression, and his strength became extremely terrifying. Even with his current strength, it is also very difficult to suppress 2 people at the same time. But the opponent has cards. Of course he has 2. Hold head high. Suddenly, a piercing dragon chant shook the heavens. Li Yu opened her eyebrows. The terrifying Long Wei rushed out immediately. A pair of cold and merciless dragon eyes looked towards the outside world. 267 immediately. An unimaginable divine light shot out from the 3rd eye between his brows. This divine light just shot out. It was accompanied by a surge of heavenly power. Long Wei and Tian Wei are mixed together. The sky of the entire spiritual domain suddenly shook violently. There are celestial maidens wandering around, and the hype is falling. There is a phantom of a man of gods that lifts the sky. A demon god is roaring. There are even more beasts running around. Shocking visions appeared in all directions. Not good. Dangerous. Yi Qingtian's eyebrows suddenly jumped wildly. His complexion changed drastically. He looked at Li Yu's eyes in the sky in horror. His eyes directly met the real dragon that was entrenched in the sky eyes. Immediately, he shuddered, just like an ant looking up to the true God. Boundless fear filled his heart. That's the gap in the level of life. That is the terror that the opponent can turn over at will and crush him. Not only does he change color, the side shot together, holding a golden ancient spear piercing through, and the terrifying and peerless Yi Zongxuan also changed color. Real dragon. A terrified cry came out of his mouth. The whole body trembled in the air. His face was even paler, without a trace of blood. 93%. Chapter 278. True Dragon Eyes, Break Divine Transformation. Boom. A bright divine light shot out from between Li Yu's brows. Just like the gods above 9 heavens, the supreme light cast down. Just a bump. Yi Qingtian's thunderbolt falling from the purple divine bead above his head. Then it exploded suddenly, turning into a large number of shattered tiny lightning bolts, destroying the land with a radius of thousands of miles. Rumble. The divine light swept across the sky. It's like a real dragon rushing out, tearing everything apart, smashing everything. Long Wei and Tian Wei are mixed and condensed together, as if a real supreme god came out from ancient time and space. Yi Zongxuan who pierced through with a golden ancient spear. In an instant, he was hit by a divine light. The whole body was directly penetrated, and a big bloody hole was in the chest. The whole body flew horizontally, coughing up blood, and his body was covered with cracks. As if at any time, will be torn apart by the terrifying power, the flesh. Shen Guang just paused for a moment. Then he suddenly broke through the barrier of the divine transformation spirit treasure, ancient knight spear, in front of Yi Qingtian. Hit Yi Qingtian hard. This divine transformation venerable from the night goblins. Same as Yi Zongxuan, they were all sent flying horizontally, their chests were pierced, and their entire bodies were covered with cracks. Drops of blood from divine transformation and venerable fall. Yi Qingtian and Yi Zan hung their hands to cover their chests, and stood in the air with pale faces. There was a look of panic in the pupils of the eyes. Horrible. Just one hit. They were hit hard. It was still when they stimulated the divine blood in their bodies and broke some restrictions in the spiritual domain. What kind of terrifying power is this? So is the boy great emperor. They thought of fleeing, but the terrifying dragon power and sky power suppressed the surrounding void. Let them be like carrying thousands of sacred mountains and great mountains on their backs. There is no way to escape. Even if you turn around, Wu Nan. The speed must also be extremely slow, and it is impossible to escape. You. Who the hell are you? Yi Qingtian stared at Li Yu, whose brows were still open, and his power was extremely terrifying. His whole heart was shaking. He thought of a legend. That is the oldest book of their night demon clan, and only a few words are recorded. In the legends, at the time of body refining realm, break the limit of a foreign skill and cultivate it to the 10th level. Then you can get a dragon pattern bestowed by heaven and earth. And if you break all the 7 external skills to the limit, you can cultivate to the 10th level. Then you can get 7 gifts from heaven and earth. The 7 dragon patterns can condense into the shape of a real dragon at the center of the eyebrows, displaying a world-shocking terrifying power. He looked at the lifelike real dragon between Li Yu's eyebrows. My heart is full of doubts. Is this the shape of a real dragon? Not at all. This is simply a real supreme dragon. At this time Li Yu was expressionless. The third eye is shining brightly, and the real dragon is entrenched. He is like the ancient god who descended from the sky, dressed in a white robe, with an immortal aura. The whole person at this moment. They were full of terror. As if a random movement can tear up the entire sky and directly smash the earth. He didn't answer. The body moves. In an instant, he came in front of Yi Qingtian, and looked at the divine transformation venerable of the night demon with a blank face. The third eye between his brows burst out with a shocking divine light again. BG. Night demon sky moon. Yi Qingtian was terrified in his heart and went completely crazy. He directly used another drop of divine blood in his body as a spell-casting material. Unleash the supernatural power, dark moon, he possesses. Boom. The divine blood boiled and completely evaporated into an astonishing mist. The mist condensed around him into a purple waning moon. The waning moon is like a knife, extremely sharp. Under the waning moon, there is even a gigantic night demon emerging, which should be as huge as 100 feet. Yi Mo has a burly body, staring at Li Yu, his whole body overlapping Yi Qingtian. Boom. The waning moon under my feet suddenly cut off. The waning moon cut down. The huge night demon also disappeared inch by inch at the same time as the waning moon cut it down, as if it had entered the waning moon. And the nightmare disappears. Yi Qingtian also disappeared. The whole sky. There was only a round of purple waning moon cut down like a knife, and a heaven-piercing divine light piercing through it. Whether it is like a knife and a moon, it's still the divine light shot out by the real dragon's sky eye. The terror of might. They have already surpassed the limits of nascent soul and Yuan Wu Tianjin. Although it has not yet reached the level of divine transformation venerable. But it can be called a half-step divine transformation. Yi Zongxuan showed horror and retreated in a hurry. Boom. The two attacks collided suddenly. The whole world paled in an instant. Endless ripples spread, and the fields and the ground were shattered for miles. What a high mountain. What a big river. At this moment, everything no longer exists, vanishes into thin air. Li Yu retreated thousands of miles away. Even if it is as strong as him. No one dared to stand directly in the middle of the explosion point and bear the terrifying aftermath. The infinite power of heaven and earth emerges. Suppress the rolling aftermath within 1,000 miles. If it weren't for the appearance of this mighty force. This terrifying collision is enough to completely destroy the territory with a radius of 7 or 8,000 miles. That will completely affect many cities in the realm of the Dajin dynasty. Under such aftermath, no matter what formations those cities have, they are definitely vulnerable and will be destroyed in an instant. Quote. Divine transformation venerable is indeed divine transformation venerable. There is still such a whole card. This strike has exceeded the strength of 500 mountains. Any nascent soul Tianjin or Yuanwu Tianjin will be easily suppressed and killed, and the corpses will not survive. He was a little surprised. This kind of old monster that has lived more than 1,000 years is terrifying. Even if it enters the spiritual realm, it can still erupt with such shocking power. He thinks, even if a young great emperor of the 9 transformation king realm is here, he will probably have to bleed. The aftermath gradually dissipated, thousands of miles away on the other side. Yi Qingtian was covered in tatters and blood, and was fleeing towards the distance rapidly. As for Yi Xuanxuani, was not with him. Instead, he fled in another Li Jiaojiao direction. But in this great spiritual realm, Li Yu doesn't look with her eyes. They can clearly know where the two are. Huh. Did you lose so much breath? Then the previous method of breaking the spiritual domain has also failed. Or was it the blow just now that exacerbated the failure? Li Yu looked at Yi Qingtian thoughtfully. This divine transformation venerable is not only extremely miserable, but also completely sluggish. Don't talk about the comparison just now. Even before the comparison, when the spiritual domain was not broken, it was far worse. Roughly, Rob, it is equivalent to about nascent soul 3rd stage. Di Zhang, you stop him, and you must not let him run out of the Dajin spiritual realm. With a flash of thought, Li Yu ordered directly. And he himself. Then he took a step forward and chased after Yi Zongxuan, the divine power venerable. The divine transformation and divine power venerable of these 2 night goblins. He is absolutely impossible to let go. 93%. Chapter 279 Kill the divine transformation venerable. Damn it. How can a master of the spiritual realm be so terrifying? The brows and sky eyes, carrying the power of heaven and earth, should be the condensed dragon pattern bestowed by heaven and earth in the legend. Back when I was in the body refining realm, I practiced the 3 outer exercises to the 9th level, and I was already the best in the world. And the other party. But it may be the 7 external skills, all of which have been practiced to the 1st level. What kind of evil is this? The juvenile great emperor is not so scary. While Yi Zongxuan frantically ran for his life, his heart was still shocked. 1 external ability has been practiced to the 10th level, and the existence of the dragon pattern bestowed by heaven and earth has been obtained. That all belonged to the legend, and it was a peerless arrogance. None of them night demons were ever born. 100 Clans battlefield runs through so many domains. He also only heard that there are 2 people who have reached this legendary realm. And those 2, they are all standing at the top of Venerable, and have the possibility to break through the God transformation realm and be promoted to God King realm. It is the real peak existence. And now, but he may have encountered an existence who has practiced all 7 external skills to the 10th level. This is simply impossible, unless there is a great emperor personally cultivating it. Otherwise, who can practice all the 7 external skills to the 10th level? Even God King personally taught and supplied a lot of rare treasures. It is also impossible. Escape. Among the fleeing Wei clan, please 690 all the divine transformation clansmen come back. There is definitely a shocking secret in this human race. Once our family gets it, our family will surely usher in unprecedented development. Not to mention recreating the glory of 10,000 years ago, it is completely possible to go far beyond it. While there was fear in his heart, there was also hope. Hope to escape from birth. Hope to escape back to the family. Hope to get the big secret of the other party. Far away, he has already seen the frontier of Dajin Lingyu. The vast mountains rise and fall one after another, and the sound once shook the sky and the earth. At his speed, all it takes is a few breaths. You will be able to break out of the great spirit realm. And as long as he breaks out of the Dajin spirit realm, he can restore the strength of the venerable realm. But unfortunately, there was a flash of light ahead of him. Li Yu was dressed in white, standing in front of Chushui. Flying away from the world and independent, like a fairy descending from 9 heavens. The 2 pretty black hair flew back. The pupils are calm, and the 3rd eye is full of mystery. The terrifying power shook the heavens and the earth, and the land with a radius of 100 miles seemed to be solidified. This is the suppressing power of the real dragon Sky Eye. Then, he is still weak and cannot fly. With the suppressing power of the real dragon Sky Eye, Shu Tian, who was able to fly, could be suppressed. And now, his cultivation base has already far surpassed the past. The power of the real dragon's eye is naturally not the same. This is supernatural power, belongs to Godsend. The real dragon between eyebrows is also a true dragon. Once released, that is Supreme's most precious bloodline among dragons. This bloodline's true dragon. As long as you are an adult, you are at the level of a fairy god. Boom. No opening, no speaking. Li Yu just appeared. The third eye between the brows burst into immeasurable divine light, covering the sky and covering the earth, piercing towards Yi Zongxuandong. Ah, Night Devil Battle Sky. Yi Zongxuan also went crazy. He has already experienced how terrifying the divine light piercing through Li Yu's brows and sky eyes is. With his current strength, it is difficult to resist. It is impossible to survive without using the ultimate means. Boom. The second drop of divine blood in his body also boiled and began to burn. A monstrous night demon emerged, covered in black scales, terrifying to the sky. Ho 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 ho. The night devil roared, stepping towards Li Yu. In the middle of the journey, he encountered the divine light that pierced through. He punched out, the ripples exploded, and the little planet was about to be smashed to pieces. The terrifying outburst reappeared, the aftermath shook, and everything sank for thousands of miles and everything exploded. I haven't waited for the aftermath to scatter, CBDD. Yi Zongxuan, who was blown away by the shock, did not dare to stay at all, and frantically fled towards Dajin's spiritual realm. His eyes were full of hope. Getting closer. 500 miles. 300 miles. 100 miles. Seeing that he was about to escape from Dajin Lingyu. But Li Yu's body appeared in front of him out of thin air, watching him quietly. Yi Zongxuan's body froze suddenly, and despair appeared in his eyes. Boom. The real dragon's eyes burst out again. This time, Yi Zongxuan was completely enveloped. The entire divine body is crumbling inch by inch. Roaring and screaming in the soul did not have any effect. Everything was wiped out under the shroud of divine light. A venerable. In front of Li Yu, she fell completely. Boom. Heaven and earth have feelings. Thunder roared, as if cheering. The shattered divine power venerable flesh and blood fell on the ground and slowly merged into it. Spirit power, the world of the entire spiritual realm. Both became more active, and Ba was promoted. Above the earth, a tiny vein of spirit stones is slowly coalescing. Li Yu felt it and took a look. He was also quite surprised. In the spiritual realm, beheading a venerable, is there such a benefit? But think about it, also within reason. Divine power venerable. That's a real god. How much have you absorbed since practicing? Falling into the spiritual domain, the amazing spirit power naturally fell into the spiritual domain. Moreover, a random drop of blood from the divine power venerable is an extremely precious medicine for tigers and wolves to a practitioner. It is normal to increase the spirit power of the spiritual realm and even form spirit stones veins. Boom. He turned his palm into a knife. Supernatural power cut off the water with a knife. Immediately, the shards of venerable soul that remained in the void were immediately covered by the blade light. All the memories on the soul fragments and so on. All were cut off. Looking at those soul fragments that had become extremely pure, Li Yu's face showed joy. Divine fragment. It is the treasure of practice. So what about the soul fragment? This is something far beyond the fragments of divine thoughts. After all, divine sense. It's just a derivative of the soul. The soul is the root. These soul fragments. It should make his sons and daughters' cultivation base improve again. And the sons and daughters have made great progress in cultivation base. It is also his cultivation base that has made great progress, and his strength has skyrocketed. There is also a divine transformation venerable. With a wave of his hand, he put away all the soul fragments and the storage ring left by the other party. He looked to the west and stepped out. 94%. Chapter 280 Destroy Divine Transformation, Inventory Harvest. Brother Zan Zan has fallen. Yi Qingtian, with disheveled hair and blood all over his body, suddenly sensed the fall of Yi Zongxuan. Immediately, the whole body trembled, and despair appeared on his face. At this time, he was enveloped by the large formation formed by Haotu and others, with no way to go to the sky and no way to enter the earth. Li Yu appeared in front of him out of thin air. With a calm face, he glanced at Yi Qingtian, and directly slashed down. Death 3 Style Second Knife 1. Mountain of Knives. Boom. A shocking death breath emerged, and a mountain of knives rushed out from under the ground. A god representing death stands on the top of the mountain, wearing a hat and holding a sickle. Call. The gods leap into the sky. In a flash, he rushed through Yi Qingtian's body. No blood spattered. There was no bone-shattering sound. The whole world seemed to have fallen into a state of dead silence. Yi Qingtian stood there in a daze, the aura on his body was disappearing rapidly. In his head, reminiscing about own life. Born at a young age, he is a juvenile Tianzhao, and he is invincible among the younger generation of the clan. It is to go to all sides of the world to challenge geniuses and never lose. His era, except for a few people who can stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He stood at the peak of the entire younger generation, 7 or 8 large domains. Then condense nascent soul into divine transformation. Once entering divine transformation, he is the upper echelon of the clan and the real god. With tens of thousands of clones, enter spiritual realms and mortal realms, spread beliefs, and collect rewards. Cultivation base is rising day by day. Enter the battlefield of hundreds of clans, behead the clan divine transformation with your friends. I have hardly suffered any setbacks in my life, and it has been extremely smooth. And now, but suddenly he was about to fall. He let out a wry laugh. Cultivation is nothing but nothing in the end, nothing but nothing. His breath dissipated, and his body fell downwards. Li Yu waved. Immediately, the corpse was suspended in the air. His complexion was dull, and the supernatural power, drawing the knife and breaking the water, slashed out. Boom! Fragments of the soul rushed out of the corpse. Every fragment of the spirit shone with a miraculous light, like the most perfect gem in the world. Divine transformation venerable. This is already a real god. One word can break the world, one kick can split the universe. Standing on the mortal realm, with a single sword ray, the mortal realm will be completely wiped out. Fragments of such beings transformed into souls. The most magnificent nature belongs to the treasure. Putting away these spirit fragments, Li Yu waved his hand again. Immediately, Yi Qingtian's body disappeared and was sent to Liushan. Willow God refines this divine transformation venerable after the god body. Cultivation base is bound to be able to advance by leaps and bounds to an extremely high level. Divine transformation venerable. The whole body under the mountain is a treasure for the existence under divine transformation. The divine power venerable before. The divine body was basically destroyed by the real dragon's sky eye, fell into the Dajin spiritual realm, and was absorbed by the spiritual realm. But Yi Qingtian's divine body is intact and can be used. Continue to guard the quartet. He looked at Haotu and the others, and ordered. Yes, Haotu and other 7 people bowed and saluted. Li Yu looked at the unrecognizable thousands of miles of land, stepped out and disappeared. Then dark clouds gathered and pouring rain fell. The sunken place for thousands of miles slowly turned into a huge lake with vast hectares of blue waves. What an amazing strength. A divine transformation venerable, a divine power venerable, was cut off so easily. What is that divine light between his brows, supernatural power? Above the far-flung birds. Feng Yanyan was amazed, but also somewhat suspicious. Distance is too far. He could only feel the horror of Li Yu's divine light. After all, the divine transformation venerable and divine power venerable that stimulated the divine blood in the body were all cut off. But specifically, he didn't see it. Didn't see the real dragon inside either. This person will definitely soar into the sky in the future. Those who can suppress and kill the divine transformation venerable in the spiritual realm. He will always become an unimaginable peerless powerhouse. He whispered softly. I am more and more satisfied with the previous own investment. He thinks, I may have the opportunity to become the most outstanding traveler in my lineage. If Li Yu really rises completely. In the future, he might even be able to compete for the position of the master of his own line. Back to the palace. The jeweling treasure tree is still shining brightly, its branches and leaves swaying. Father, is divine transformation venerable coming? Li Deyan said softly. Although far away, but she naturally also felt the terrifying power. Far beyond her capabilities, asking for flowers. Yes, the divine transformation venerable and divine power venerable of the night demons. The deity came and was already beheaded by me. Li Yu nodded, and he glanced at Li Daosu and others who were still practicing at a deep level, surrounded by Li Daoyan's true energy. Satisfied in my heart. Divine transformation venerable, divine power venerable. Li Daoyan's eyes were fixed, and her heart was also shaken. This is a true legend. There are several big spiritual realms around. But there has never been such a terrifying existence. For the creatures in the spiritual domain. This is the god on high. Continue to practice. Strive to condense all the 7 souls in one go. Li Yu said. 171. Li Daoyan saluted and sat down again in the lotus position. Spirit power came together and fell into practice again. 0.0. And Li Yu herself. Flip the right hand. There are already 2 storage rings. His eyes sparkled. I also feel quite excited in my heart. This is a storage ring for 2 venerables. Divine Transformation Venerable, Divine Power Venerable. This is the existence that stands at the top of the great domain. How much wealth do they have? Call. With a move of his mental power, he poured into Yi Qingtian's storage ring. Suddenly found a huge space with a length and width of more than 100 miles. In this space, there are countless precious lights rushing up, which is dazzling. That is, Li Yu's breathing suddenly became short of breath, and she looked to one side. There is a hill there. The hill is formed by the accumulation of a large number of spiritual coins. But this spirit coin, it was completely different from the spirit coin in his hand. Not only is the whole body purple, but it also conveys an extremely noble meaning. There is a touch of special Tao rhyme looming on it, which makes people intoxicated. Whether its appearance or breath, they are far more than the spirit coins in his hand. This is the purple spirit coin. The legend contains Tao rhyme, a purple spirit coin that can speed up the comprehension of the Tao of heaven and earth. His eyes lit up, and his heart became excited. Purple spirit coin. The value of one piece is equal to 10,000 ordinary spirit coins. And there has always been a price without a market. If you take 10,000 ordinary spirit coins, you will definitely not be able to exchange for one purple spirit coin. It is the exclusive property of the gods. Beg. It is the exclusive property of the gods. Beg. It is the exclusive